Howdy, everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, and the time is 6 p.m. We're here for the regular session of the Coppell City Council meeting. We do have a quorum present, so I'm calling the meeting to order. We will be convening into executive session in the first floor conference room. At the end of the executive session, I'll come back out and announce that we're going into work session, and at that time, I'll invite the public to attend. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. The time is 6:48 p.m. We have adjourned from executive session and moving into work session in the first floor conference room. The public is invited and encouraged to join us. Thank you. All right, the time is 6:50 p.m. and we have adjourned from executive session and moving into work session. We have two items on the agenda for this evening. The first one is a discussion of the agenda items. Does anybody have anything to ask or request or comments for? I've got one, so anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
On item E, got a question about some clarification also. Slide tower.
Jessica, this is on the...
Yes, this is going to be Trinity Eclipse our project supervisor to answer this question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hey, on the memo it says, I guess the tower was installed in 2000 and then the additional side was added in 2011. Is the slide itself, was that also installed in 2011 or 2000?
One of the slides was installed in 2000 and the other slide was installed.
Okay, so there are two separate on different times. And then I'm just trying to make sure that it says it's not in replacement for both of them, right? Not anytime soon. That's all I have.
Jim?
Just one quick question on the Olson Studio Design Services for the Veterans Memorial. Do we have a timeline on that? Like, is there a time by which they should bring the design forward?
I'm sorry, which one were you talking about?
Oh, on F.
F.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes. So, yeah, Olson Studio is going to be about 3 months from when we say go, which is when it's CRDC approves it next week, hopefully. It'll be about 3 months till we get construction documents.
Cool, okay, thanks.
And I'm sorry, I cut John off, so he had
Another one. Question on L. I think it's Mike, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So this looks like it's similar to Plantation Drive, right?
Correct.
And I'm guessing you're going to hit all the sidewalks too.
Correct.
And are we putting the ADA sidewalk that's like the one that we have on Plantation?
So this one we did do some design work on the actual ramps, and so we did accommodate for some to be the directional, and then some are going to be with the flared, with the room available.
Okay, so is,
It's based, based off again, the right of way that we have at these intersections.
okay, are we gonna be seeing some of those funky ones that you see in Plantation?
Yes.
Same thing where it's a closed turn and,
With the raised curve, which is directional.
and then I saw that you're gonna have meeting with the residents and all of these are gonna be brought up as to what it's gonna look like,
Correct.
so they're fully aware of
That's
what's
correct.
gonna
Yeah,
be.
we will show examples and pictures of what they're going to look like, so the expectations of that.
Okay. You know, last time we talked about how some of the corners, if we were to acquire some of the land, or if the land gave us right away, we might have made it better. Are we actually trying to do that as well before we actually do anything?
I need to go back and look at the actual locations where we're going to do that and see. There is an opportunity, there probably is an opportunity if we have the room to be able to, or to talk to the homeowner and see if we need to acquire these, if that's the direction.
Okay, because, yeah, I mean, if we could eliminate some of those, that issue that Plantation came up, that would be great. So that's the question. Thank you. One last one. I had, was on M. I just had a question about the three-year renewal. On the renewal, it didn't say whether it's actually going to be, it says option to renew. Is that the same terms and conditions or the costs as the previous 3 years?
So the way this agreement works is the first initial year is the 22,000, and then the normal cost. So we're getting a discount based off the implementation for year one. The normal cost is the 38.5. So if you look at other communities of the small government enterprise agreement, they're all 38.5, and then incrementally based off their incremental percentage increase, it's going to go up to 39 for year 3, and then we would have to renegotiate for the next 3-year term.
Based on what we're paying now, or just?
Based on the 39, that year 3 term, 39,000, it'll be based off of that, and more than likely it'll increase 3%.
Okay, not like the jump on the first year, second?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I have a follow-up on L, $4.8 million. I know most of the projects we do, we have change order comes in. I assume that, I notice all the time. I know some of the change orders we cannot anticipate. Do you have any list of things that you anticipate with this project potentially have a change order?
So as we go through the design process, we look at those potential conflicts, and so we identify what we think would be a potential conflict throughout the design process. Most of the times, change orders that we see are some things that are beyond our control, or there may be a change in scope based on when we get out there. There's a difference in whatever's happening out there, and so we have to adjust to that. So as of right now, we don't anticipate any change orders. The ones that we did incorporate into the initial design.
Yeah, the reason I ask is we had to rectify many of the things with the ADA compliance with ADA compliance. So I know you are doing a design there.
Right. So from the plantation.
Yeah.
Fortunately for us, we were in the middle of design for Woodhurst, and so we went back to that designer and said, here's the issues we're having on plantation. Let's capture those now before we go out to bid. And so they were captured.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Can I follow up? Sure. On L, you did talk about reaching out to the residents. What method and how often are we trying to do? How are we trying to reach out?
So the initial, we are going to have a public meeting, as we do for all projects, to have the availability for them to voice their concerns on their particular property. We're going to lay out the set of plans, show them their property, and we'll be able to show the impacts that the project's going to have on their property. And throughout the project, we'll have communication probably monthly with the impacted homeowners, and then obviously if there's a direct impact at that time, we will have notification and direct communication with them at that time. But we anticipate having at least monthly either mail outs or updates to the homeowners as part of the project.
And just to be clear, this company is not the same as the one that actually did the plantation. I
Correct.
think there were a number of issues
Yes,
with that
that is
company
correct.
as well, right?
It's a different contractor.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Anything else? So Mike, I've got a question on J. This is the intersection that's under construction on South Beltline. Can you give us an idea of what type of schedule and other encumbrances that we're going to see here?
Sure, sure. You need me to come up? Let me
Sure.
come up there. And, what I want to do is kind of just go backwards and kind of give a timeline of where we are to
Well, I know I was telling everyone in the city that we were going to be ready by May, and so
Right, so we were focusing on opening up lanes by that time, but let me go back a little bit and you know, the Beltline project has been a challenge with it's a large project. Some of the challenges in coordination efforts with Irving, Dallas, neighboring properties, DART, franchise utilities. So there's throughout the project, we've struggled with some of those coordination efforts and to get things done. And so we started off with a delay. So the original contract was awarded in August of 2021. The notice to proceed didn't start until February 28th. And so between August and February, there was a delay due to franchise relocations that were not out of the way, coordination efforts with neighboring cities and traffic control plans, and then also the adjacent property owner that was kind of slowing down just for easements and constructability on the neighboring property. And so we started February 28th with a contract of 480 days. As we were going through the project, there were conflicts that we encountered as we were unearthing things, additional franchise utilities that weren't identified early on, or franchise utilities that weren't out of the way and said they were out of the way, which is common in projects that we've experienced over the years. Intersections where we were expecting to get easements from adjacent property owners that we struggled to get, and so we had to redesign some of the intersections. And so we had change order number 1, which was issued in April. And what that change order was, it was a $0 change order, but it added time to the project due to the delays in coordination efforts with adjacent property owners at some of the intersections. We had to redesign some of the intersections in order to accommodate that. As we moved along between April and June, there was a developer that was going to come in between Hackberry and Dividend to propose a development at that time. And so we started negotiating, talking with them about the coordination of efforts between our project and what they were wanting to do with their project as far as turn lanes, driveways, spacing, median cuts. But with the initiation of the development, and this has necessitated a traffic signal at the Hackberry intersection. And so in June of 2013, we issued a contract amendment with our design consultant to add additional design efforts to redesign that intersection at Hackberry and Beltline to incorporate the traffic signal, as well as incorporate the developers' right turn lanes and driveways as part of our project. And so around that same time in June, we issued, at the same time we were working out plans to redesign our median landscaping to go to more drought-tolerant water conservation effort of type medians. And so in June of this year, we issued change order number 2 to the contractor. Again, another $0 change order, but it added 35 days to the project in order to allow time for our consultant to redesign the medians and then for them to implement those changes. And so then at the June 13th council meeting, council approved the contract amendment for the design of the changes due to the Victory development, which is the one between Hackberry and Dividend. And then in August, the last council meeting, August 22nd, we issued change order number 3 to the contractor, which incorporated all those changes from the additional scope of work for the intersection at Hackberry, and then the other changes to the intersection, including the driveway locations, right turn lanes, and median changes. And so that change order number 3 added an additional 240 days, and that was to get the intersection from Hackberry to 635, which puts us, contract time, which puts us in early summer of 2024. Now, with that being said, we are working with the contractor to be done a lot sooner than early summer of 2024. We have probably, we anticipate 4 to 6 months, so probably March timeframe, April timeframe is when we really anticipate them to be completed with that last piece of the project. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Yeah, but that Victory development, when did we first learn about that? That was like mid last year.
That
right?
was, it was a concept at that time. Then earlier this year, probably February, March timeframe is when it started really materializing. Fortunate, unfortunate, we were still being held up by franchise utilities down at the intersection at 635. So the timing somewhat worked out in our favor. Had we continued on, we would have been paving all the way through, and then we would be coming back and removing it. So it worked out that the timing worked out that they came, and we were still in that process of getting that intersection held out. And so
that was dropped on us toward, I mean, we were well down the road.
We were down the road.
Literally, and figuratively.
Exactly, yes. From the beginning, we had the project broken up into three phases. Phase 1 was a southbound, phase 2 was northbound, and phase 3 was going to be the Hackberry to 635 intersection.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, thanks for the update. I know in our contract, there was incentives added if they finish the contract earlier for each day. Where are we with that?
So with there's still an opportunity with the contract extensions of the change orders. There is still opportunity for that. They've been working throughout this whole process on the project. And so if they meet those incentive days, they do have an opportunity to still get those incentives.
So have we paid any money?
We have not paid any incentives.
Okay. Thank you.
So what is the 240 days? What is the date?
That date puts us out to June 29th of 2024. Now, that's where it kind of gets complicated. That is from the end of the previous change orders. So if we start with the 480, that puts us at June of 2023. That's the original contract was 480 June 2023. The additional 120 days puts us through October. So right now, before the change order 3, the contract would have been October. From October, 247 days go out to June. But they started that portion of the project 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. So they started earlier than that October timeframe. So realistically, that shortens the time of the project. So that's why we're thinking shooting for an earlier completion in June.
Don?
I don't have anything for Mr. Garza, but on D,
Hang on.
okay.
So is there any way we can go back out with a revised schedule? Remember back in May and June when I was asking why we were not incrementing?
So the new one that's out now does have the revised phasing. We started doing that when we started this last phase, so we kind of treated this last phase as a new project related to that updated weekly worksheet. So the graph is now showing probably a 10% completion on this phase with the new, and it should show the new completion date in 2024.
Okay, thank you. Don?
On E,
Did you say D is in dog or
no,
D is in
E,
echo?
elephant.
Oh,
E ends in elephant. So just, Mike, remind me, the recreational program special revenue fund, where's that one? What fund is that?
It's that fund.
Well, what's its source of funds, I guess? Or how did we determine, like, CRD, part of it's CRDC
Yes.
and then part of it's the other?
So that was a fund that I think during the budget workshops when SFE had gone over, we had some smaller special revenue funds and the council had kind of requested that we maybe spend some of those or exhaust some of those. So this is our effort to just exhaust this fund.
Oh, okay.
This is an old fund that's been around for many years. It used to receive old recreational programs dollars money from camps, things like that, and we have not really been putting anything into that for a long time, so we've been trying to exhaust that
So
fund.
this will actually use up.
This will use up that fund, it will be completely
Okay.
exhausted, and so that way we keep some of the pressure off the CRDC from
Okay,
funding this.
sure, that makes sense. I didn't remember what that fund was or
Yeah.
how it got funded.
Yes,
actually. So,
yeah.
okay, so that's gonna do away with that one. And then on F, so the Veterans Memorial is the idea, so the design phase here is coming out of CRDC.
Correct.
Have we decided where we're paying, how we're paying for?
We currently, so
Construction.
SFE is currently holding money in CRDC for the entire project.
Oh, for the entire program,
Mhm.
okay, so we've already got some earmarked or something
Correct.
in CRDC.
Correct.
Okay, I couldn't remember,
After your direction from the
Yeah.
July meeting, we have the 1.5 million.
okay, I just couldn't remember how we had determined which fund it was gonna come out of, or which fund balance it was gonna come out of, so that's all I was trying to clarify. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Let's move on to item B, which is a presentation of the fiscal year 24 work plan. Tracy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Have some the handouts for you of the work plan, just in case, for your reference. So I'm pleased to be here tonight we've made it to the final step in the annual planning process. And so this process began in January with your council retreat, in which you identified and prioritized the goals from the Vision 2040 strategic plan. So subsequent to that, staff has spent some time with our internal teams at the department level and then with the director team to kind of massage and clean these up to present to you the kind of the final proposed work plan for fiscal year 24. So this should look familiar. This is essentially the same document that I presented to you in the spring. And so this is kind of our last run through for council to ask any questions or provide any feedback to us. The next step in this process will be to have this for council consideration and action on the upcoming agenda. That concludes my presentation. And like I said, many of these things should look familiar. There have been very few changes to what you saw in April. It's really wordsmithing and grammatical. So if there's anything, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. If not, the document before you will be what will be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Well, since you offered, I have a question. Moving Kaleidoscope to Old Town,
Yes,
is it going to be enough room to do it?
yes.
I get the impression that Andy Brown Park is pretty full.
So we've been tracking attendance for that event, and we are streamlining and focusing the theming for the event itself, and so we are confident that that will be a perfect venue for that event.
Move the hour too, right? Change the hours.
Yes.
Do you go back to same performers, or is it always your intention to try to get different performers each year?
I am going to ask for support from our community experiences team on the entertainment.
We're still working on finalizing performances, but there will be some new ones and then some returning as well. So I don't have the list on me tonight, but we can provide that to you when we have it
And
finalized.
then there's a, I guess, cap as to how many performers that you're gonna have, right?
Yes, and so one of the reasons we're moving to Old Town too was the ability to partner with the Art Center. So there's sort of a daytime portion of the event, and then there's sort of an after-hours show at the Art Center as well to pair and partner with that event that evening. So that was part of doing that. So an extra performance there, but inside the building. Yes.
Number 3, pillar number 3, the community oasis. It says explore the dog park and neighborhood park cleanup projects and events. I know we have done some survey on the dog park from the owners. Do you have an updates on that, or are we going to continue from the result from the dog park, or what's this?
Is your question around the dog park itself or how we're,
The dog park itself for the survey that we conducted?
so there will be, on Friday's tidbits, there will be information related to the dog park as an update for y'all.
Okay.
Because we're currently in what stage of that?
Design 50 to 60%.
So it's in design. So I noticed here under pillar 5, we were talking about business pop-ups.
Yes.
This is a little bit different. This is a concept where you would allow temporary businesses to pop up in alternate locations.
Yes, so if you think of like the, what was the most recent one that popped up? It was the trunk show. And so it is, we are looking, so we put some money in the 5-year forecast for pop-up retail. One of the things, there's a number of different ways that you can kind of structure that, from very formal, where the city leases space and then kind of subleases on very short-term rotating leases to startup companies. It can be as formal as that, and it can be as informal as kind of the vendor markets. So John, you've talked about before, kind of vendor market, so it could be that kind of pop-up retail. So this really is continuing that exploration for what makes the most sense for us.
Question for you, Tracy.
Yes, sir.
Pillar number 5, the second bullet, post voter registration drives, booths, and election education. Do you have any
Yes.
details on that? How are we going to approach the people who haven't registered, does not know about registration, and so on and so forth?
Yes, so this would just be in conjunction with our many of our existing special events that we have in Old Town, and have educational materials as well. So we'll have our staff on site to answer questions, hand out materials, that sort of thing, provide some additional awareness. But it would be in partnership with a lot of our existing events that we have down there.
Are we going to approach HOAs to go and talk about this voter registration or anything like that, education?
We hadn't thought of that idea just
Okay.
yet, but we'll take that into consideration.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Jim?
So, Tracy, thanks for all this. On
Yes,
the
sir.
study Old Town Coppell to determine the appropriate measures for activation of the square,
Yes.
I mean, I really, really want to support the businesses down there and really try to figure out what we're going to do. Where are we in relation to that general description?
So that is, we're at a pause right now,
Yeah.
knowing that one of the items that's included in the budget for the upcoming year is the retail, dollars for the retail consultant to come in and help us understand what the retail picture is and what that area will support, that I think will inform and place y'all in a better position to have an informed conversation around then what is the next step.
Right. Well, and we've got hopefully some new retail opening too, and we'll have just some more activity hopefully, but also be instructive.
And in theory, we should have some development that council has approved in Old Town to kind of see how that then comes to fruition or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have anything else? I take it your phone is always open for questions?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The time is 7:16 PM, and we're at the end of work session. We'll reconvene into regular session of the city council at 7:30.
We lost him. We lost him. There he is. Come on, we've lost he's gone. The people have him.
Don Carroll, please come join us.
Oh, he got called to the principal's office.
Page.
He's right back there.
Good evening, everybody. The time is 7:31 p.m., and we're here for the regular session of the Coppell City Council. As a reminder, persons wishing to speak during the citizens' appearance or the public hearings tonight must sign the appropriate register outside the council chamber and list your residence address. We do have 4 public hearings, and so be a bit careful which one you're wanting to speak for, because they are individual for each one of the public hearings. Tonight we have Youth Minister Bunker Harris with the Church of Latter-day Saints here to give our invocation, and then we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and remain standing while we do that. Bunker?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this opportunity for the city and the people and the elected officials to join tonight, and an opportunity to help the public and the public good. We thank Thee so much for all those people who have given up so much, and first responders in responding to our nation and our community and helping others for the good. We ask You bless that we can have unison and that we can all find peace with each other tonight as we come in accordance over these ideals. We ask You bless that the city can find unison with its people and we can show true character tonight. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Yeah, he's back there.
Okay. Item number 6 is a presentation of a proclamation celebrating the month of September as Senior Center Month. Callie and crew would like to come forward. The entire crew. Don't stand behind me. I'll block you. Ladies and gentlemen, whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, investing their wisdom and experience to help enrich and strengthen their community, and whereas the Coppell Senior and Community Center has acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of older residents of Coppell, and whereas through through the wide array of services, programs, and activities, the Coppell Senior and Community Center empowers adults 50 and over of Coppell to contribute to their own health and well-being. Whereas the Coppell Senior and Community Center will continue to affirm the dignity, self-worth, and independence of adults 50 and over in Coppell by tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge and enabling their continued contributions to our community. Therefore, I, Wes Mays, Mayor of the City of Coppell, do hereby proclaim the month of September is Senior Center Month in the City of Coppell, and I encourage all citizens to recognize the special contributions of the Senior Center members and the special efforts of the staff who work every day to enhance the well-being of the older citizens in our community. In witness thereof, I've set my hand and caused the seal of Coppell to be affixed this 12th day of September 2023. Council, Mayor Pro Tem John.
Well, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to say welcome to all of you. It's great to see all of you here instead of me and Councilmember Kevin always visiting the senior center. And you are welcome to stay until the end of the meeting, and you're welcome to come back every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, just like we go there every fourth Wednesday of the month. But no, I just want to say that you guys really do, we appreciate you sharing your experience, skills, and knowledge, just like what the proclamation says. And as a Korean American, our tradition is always being respectful of our seniors for their knowledge and for them setting the standards for us to follow. And I do appreciate you guys setting a good example for all of us to follow. So thank you again for being here.
Councilmember Nevels.
Yes, so I just want to thank you guys for being here. Just like Mayor Pro Tem said, I just want to say that it is a highlight of my month to be able to come out and visit with you guys and get an opportunity to not only share what's going on with the city, but learn what concerns you have and be that conduit and that connection to the city. So really appreciate all you guys do. You guys are so involved. You're so willing to help out, with things around the city, and we just really appreciate all you guys do to enrich the lives of not just the other seniors, but everyone else in the community. We appreciate you. And Council, I just wanted to warn you that it is my understanding that the seniors may be challenging us to competition pretty soon. So I want you guys to be prepared, and you better get your cornhole bags ready, because I hear there's a gauntlet that's going to be thrown down. So, all right. So
I just want to say, get ready to give it up.
Oh, there we go. He said it, not me. Just remember that. But again, we just want to say thank you guys for all you do, and love getting an opportunity to spend time with you guys. Thank y'all.
Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, several months ago, my wife and one of her dear friends started going down to the Senior Center to play Mahjong. And not only have they thoroughly enjoyed it, but they've just really been amazed at what a welcoming environment it is. You show up, and no one down there has ever met a stranger. So I just want to encourage anyone that's watching or that hears about this to, if you're thinking about going down to the Senior Center and participating in one of the events and meeting some of these fine people, let me tell you, it's a fun place, it's a very welcoming environment, and there's no stranger that's ever darkened the door down there. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And I wanted to apologize. I've been invited by Mayor Pro Tem John and Councilmember Nevels for 18 months to come down and visit on Wednesday, and unfortunately, that is my single day of the week that I go into work, which is in Plano. And so going back and forth just doesn't work. So I'm going to work on finding another day of the week when I can come visit you guys once a month or something like that. So, did you have anything you would like to say?
I'm just appreciative. Pass it to me. Pass it to Kelly.
Yeah, so the theme this year is Discover Yours. Last week we discovered our health and wellness. This week we're discovering our creative side. Next week is Discover Your Wild Side. And then we're going to end it with Discovering Your Community. So it is so fun to get to celebrate this group of people. They have done a lot for Coppell, so we enjoy getting to celebrate them.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, we got the thumbs up.
Thank y'all for the kind work. That's okay. Good job. You did great.
Really?
And now everybody's clear about it. You gotta go to bed, because we're old.
Yeah, here's a picture one guy sent me of the. Good job. There's only about 3 of them over the west side of the building that to provide lighting for the pharmacy drive-through.
See if they like that.
Item number 7 on our agenda is a citizen's appearance. Persons wishing to speak must sign the register and list their address. Presentations by individuals shall be limited to 2 minutes each. Persons signed up to speak shall be called in the order that they signed up. No personal attacks by any speaker shall be made against any member of the council, mayor, individual, group, or corporation. There will be no comments or deliberations from the city council due to the Texas Open Meetings Act. Once the timer sounds, the city secretary will cut and break in and make the request to the mayor and city if it would be their pleasure to extend the speaker's time an additional 2 minutes. We do have one person signed up to speak tonight, and that's Mr. Thomas Burrows. Name and address, please, sir.
Well, you've got the address on the thing there. 138 Windpage, Thomas Burrows.
Thank you.
First would lead off with my A1C is 6.3 today, so just thought I would tell everybody that, so I can move down beyond being type 2 diabetic. A week ago on Labor Day, there was a water leak in town. And I spent a half hour waiting for someone to show up to look at it. And then they let the water leak run for 2 days. So I guess that sign saying water saved 30% of the water really is, I don't know. I'm not sure how many thousands of gallons ran down the street. And then, there's all these code enforcement things that I keep turning in, like street lights that don't work. I guess they're not important. We're just paying for them. And last but not least, I seem to be getting a lot of special attention from the police department. Like one day they showed up at my house and said, "Did you steal something out of this car?" And I said, "No." "Well, we saw you on a video walking by it and stopping and looking at it." "Well, looking at cars is not against the law." And then a couple of weeks ago, I got stopped and the officer was asking, "Well, why are you turning into the car wash here?" Well, to be honest with you, it's nobody's business why I turn into a car wash. Said had a light out. My wife looked at the light. The repair place looked at the light. We couldn't find the light that was out. And then there was that infamous time that one of the former council members decided I was drunk and I was detained out here when I don't drink, folks. And so, again, code enforcement. The big area that needs to be fixed, besides down there by the U-Haul place, is next to your house, Mayor. So when that catches on fire and the embers come over and burn your house down, don't tell me I didn't warn you about this, okay? I have no idea what we're doing with this. But
Mr. Burrows, your time has expired.
This is getting old, being stopped by the police for crap that I haven't done,
Mr. Burrows, your time has expired.
Good.
Okay.
But they wasted a lot of my time 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Moving on, item number 8 is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is routine in nature and generally enacted in one motion. These items have been previously approved through the budget or past council actions. Any item may be pulled and considered separately. Full descriptions are available on the screen. Council, do you have anything you would like to question or pull for individual consideration? Seeing none, I will accept a motion. Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items A through N.
Second by Councilmember Carroll. All in favor?
Walker, Carroll, Nevels, Jones, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 9 is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and ask Mr. Steer to read the item into the record.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is item number 9, which is a public hearing. It's to consider approval of a zoning change request from PD 264 RBN 5 to PD 264R RBN 5 to allow the removal of 5 Leland cypress trees on 7.1 acres of property located on a common area Lot 1X, Block D, East Haven, at the request of East Haven HOA, being represented by the affected property owner, Christina Lowe. In June 2013, the zoning change to Plan Development 264 RBN 5 was approved, and this allowed for the development of 58 single-family lots and 3 common area lots. Along the east side of the subdivision, there was a 38-foot wide buffer area that was approved. The buffer area contains an 8-foot wide concrete flume, ground cover, and trees, which provide a physical and visual separation as well as accommodates drainage. The intention was to preserve as many of the existing trees as possible in the buffer area. Unfortunately, there are 5 Leland cypress trees that are negatively impacting the adjacent property to the east, specifically the backyard of the residents at 635 Cane Mount Lane. According to the applicant, the 5 cypress trees are are behind the fence, and on the East Haven property are producing cypress knees all over their backyard. Over the years, they've spent thousands of dollars having them ground down and trying to remove the knees, but they just keep coming back. The roots are traveling up their retaining wall and coming up about 5 feet and surfacing in their backyard. Aside from wreaking havoc in their flower beds and lawn, they're concerned that the knees are going to make it to their pool deck and foundation and do permanent damage if they do continue. They consulted an arborist, and he said that the knees would keep coming back unless the trees were removed. Here are some photos of the knees here, close up, and here's some photos of the retaining wall where the knees are affecting that retaining wall, and then some of the trees that were affected by the high temperatures and lack of water this summer. The owner of this property and the East Haven HOA have agreed to remove the trees. When they came to pull a tree removal permit, the fees were assessed at $10,600. The fees were calculated at $100 per inch for those that are 12 inches or less, and then $200 per inch for those that are 12 inches and greater. Typically, a residential property owner can remove or plant trees on their own property without the need for a tree removal permit or the payment of fees. These trees, however, are located on a common area lot and not considered a residential lot. Therefore, a tree removal permit was required and fees were assessed. The applicant's requesting a waiver of the fees. In consultation with the city attorney, it was determined that the method to ask for a waiver of fees is through the zoning process with an amendment to the approved tree preservation plan, and then city council has the authority to waive the fees. We sent out 26 notices within 200 feet. We received 1 in opposition yesterday that backs up on a cul-de-sac located 2 cul-de-sacs to the north of this request, but they did not have any feedback on their letter. We sent out 221 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We had 1 response from the 800-foot courtesy notice, and he was asking what the purpose of the rezoning was and asked if they could replant trees. I let him know that there wasn't irrigation in that area, and replanting was not an option for that particular area. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this zoning change, tree removal amendment to the tree preservation plan, and staff recommends granting this amendment with a fee waiver. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. We do have the applicant in the audience, the affected property owner, the HOA, and we've got our tree preservation specialist, Lane Klein, here as well to help answer questions.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Steer? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Have we ever had a similar situation in other locations where we actually had the resident go ahead and apply for a permit and assess the fee and waive as well?
I'm not aware of another situation like this. We have had subdivisions come in when they initially apply and come through the zoning process that we have waived fees.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have two persons that have signed up to speak. Ms. Lowe, you're authorized, or you're allowed to speak on your behalf as part of the hearing. So I'll call the first person to speak is, and I'm going to really butcher the last name, but it looks like Chella Rathiam. I'm sorry, I know I messed that one up. State your name and your address for the record.
Yeah.
And
my name is Chella Muthuthuram, 452 Rock Springs Road. So I'm from the East Lake HOA. I'm from the East Lake HOA, and we're trying to help Lois on this property to get rid of these trees because it's dying all the time, and also it is kind of we went and visit their place and we see a lot of damages are happening. So we are kind of in favor of the removal of the tree. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. The next speaker is Christina Lowe.
I live in the house and just appreciate you
Name
considering
and
it.
address, please.
Christina Lowe, 635 Cane Mount Lane. And I was just simply here to answer any questions if you had any questions for me, but it sounds like there's none, so.
Just tell it. Anybody? Just tell us what's on your mind.
Well, basically, pretty much what was said, these trees were planted years ago, and the cypress knees had been traveling to the retaining wall up into our yard and just causing tons of problems for us and expenses throughout the years. And at this point, we're really just trying to protect our property and preserve the integrity of it, and the stone wall and our foundation and our pool. So after seeing two arborists and even talking with the city arborist, really the only choice seems to be is to take those trees out, as much as we hate to. And since there is no irrigation down there, they're really not great and healthy trees anyway, so that's about it.
Thank you very much.
So thanks for considering.
Matt, did you say the arborist was here?
We've got our tree preservation specialist.
I had my question was, does the cypress roots, are they attracted toward water? Is that?
Right, yes, so they are. So they're searching for water. So when they come up, they're called knees. The roots are searching for water. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Council, comments? Councilmember Nevels.
Mayor, just a procedural question. If we were to waive the tree mitigation fees on this, do we have to declare that in the motion, or is that already included in?
It's included in the item.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
You can approve the item number 9 as written, and that would give them the authority to do that.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure I understood procedurally. Thank you.
Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor.
I was,
You might want to go ahead and include the fee waiver, just because what had happened at Planning and Zoning Commission was they recommended approval of the tree preservation amendment, and council is the only one with the authority to waive the fees.
So I stand corrected. It would be better to make that specifically clear in a motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
I was just going to say, I appreciate the HOA and the residents working to a solution in this situation. And as the owner of a couple of bald cypress, I very much feel your pain for the never-ending battle against knees in the yard. So with that, I would move to close the public hearing and move to approve item
9.
number 9 with the fee waiver.
And a second by Councilmember Nevels. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Walker, Carroll, Nevels, Junn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, the motion carries.
Okay, item number 10 is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing and consider approval of a zoning change request from PD 308-C, Plan Development of a 308 Commercial, to a PD 308RC Plan Development 308 Revised Commercial to allow a revised plan for a new fuel station with 5 fuel pumps located at 950 East Sandy Lake Road. Mr. Steer.
Mayor, Council, this is a repeat of a PD request that was approved in June of this year. Kroger's proposing to move the gas pumps 250 feet south, closer to the intersection as a result of the discussion at the City Council meeting. All of the previous conditions will be carried forward from the previous ordinances, with the exception of those that I'll talk through during the presentation tonight, and then I'll sum up at the end of the condition, or with the condition slide at the end of the presentation. So here's where the existing gas pumps are located, or the approved gas pumps are located, and here's where the proposed gas pumps will be located. And again, here's the approved site plan, and they're proposed to be moved to the south, closer to Sandy Lake, approximately 250 feet. The proposed route of the fuel delivery truck has changed. The previously approved route was to enter from MacArthur Boulevard for fill-up, then circle the building, and then exit onto Sandy Lake Road. And the proposal that was presented during P&Z, the fuel truck was proposed to enter the site from Sandy Lake for fill-up and then exit onto MacArthur, take a U-turn there and go southbound. After the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and after further analysis by staff, it was determined that this turning movement was not safe nor practical. We consulted with the applicant, and they submitted an alternative that we think is safer and more practical, as this will not need to maneuver onto into inbound traffic. And we are open to other alternatives if circling around the building causes concern. They could even circle in front of the building. We're open to other alternatives. With the new proposed location, they are increasing the needed parking variance from 11 parking spaces to 20 parking spaces. The proposed fuel center will be operational until 12 a.m. via pay at the pump, and will have an attendant from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. during normal hours of operation as approved with the previous request. And as with the previous request, they are asking for an additional monument sign, and they've carried forward their commitment to not having any outside storage. So let me go. They are actually asking for the condition that restricted that restricted the fuel deliveries between the hours of 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. They're asking for that condition to be lifted. I'm sorry about that. So here's the aerial with the aerial of the southeast corner of the site with the proposed site plan overlaid. The new configuration shows the same kiosk size as 179 square feet, the same canopy size at 5,300 square feet. Currently, there are 347 parking spaces at the existing Kroger. They're proposing to remove 47 parking spaces and relocate a landscape island, leaving 300 spaces. This requires a 20 parking space variance, which is listed as a PD condition. Previously, an 11 parking space variance was approved, and staff is in favor of this request, as there will be 10 spots at the pumps that typically don't count towards parking, and the applicant has provided a parking study indicating that more than half of the parking is not currently being used on an average day. An air water station is proposed south of the kiosk in an existing landscape island at the end of the parking row. And as with the previously approved plans, the landscaping of the site is proposed to be updated to plant what is missing or has died over the years. The landscape plan shows 26 eastern red cedars to be planted where previously Leland cypress were located. Some of these trees have been planted already, and the ones that are still missing or have died are proposed to be planted in the fall. There are 12 Chinese pistache trees proposed within the landscape islands and along the MacArthur Boulevard, 7 Yopon hollies along the west perimeter, and 23 crepe myrtles at the entries. There are 139 Burford hollies proposed to be planted adjacent to the parking area as required by the landscaping section of the zoning ordinance, and these two will be planted in the fall prior to the fuel station being constructed, if approved. Currently, there's an existing monument sign located on the Sandy Lake Road that identifies a Kroger grocery store. As with the previously approved request, another monument sign is proposed on the MacArthur that will contain fuel prices. This too will require an exception to the zoning ordinance and is listed as a PD condition. The sign is proposed to be 40 square feet in size. Staff is in favor of this request as it will function for the gas station portion of the site and it is consistent with other gas station signage throughout town. The materials of the canopies remain the same from the previous approval, except for slight changes to the canopy fascia. It now extends 5 inches below the decking, and this will help diffuse the canopy lighting. The applicants agreed to install 1-inch shields around the lighting below the canopy to help shield potential glare from the lights. We sent out 34 notices within 200 feet. We received 3 responses in opposition listing pollution, noise and air pollution, potential life-threatening hazard and odor, stating that the site was already a crammed space. They asked if Kroger should move elsewhere. Another one was concerned due to the close proximity of the elementary school, the traffic, the fact that there are already gas stations nearby, property values will drop, and a lack of trust with Kroger, citing that Kroger doesn't care about their neighbors. The third was concerned about traffic congestion, children's safety while walking to school, and the trash and noise of the Kroger already being bothersome. We sent out 188 courtesy notices within 800 feet and received no response in favor or opposition from those notices. So the only changes to the conditions here relate to changes in parking on condition number 6, which requires 9 additional parking spaces from the previously approved request. There are 320 required by code. They're requesting 300. The next change relates to the exterior, relates to the condition number 8 that talks about exterior canopy lighting shall emit no greater than 50.5-foot candles as provided in the photometric plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission removed the second half of this condition requiring the dimming, which required the dimming to 1-foot candle when closed. We have a new commissioner who is a lighting expert, and he recommended that this may become a safety hazard if we allow it to go down to 1-foot candle. So staff will work with the applicant to ensure it's dimmed to match the surrounding light intensity between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. Those are the hours when it's closed. And the foot candles at that time are between 2.6 and 4.1-foot candles. So we'll ensure that it's somewhere in that range. The applicants requested that condition 11, the fuel delivery restrictions between 3 and 4 p.m. be excluded, and the Planning and Zoning Commission left this in their recommendation. Finally, the addition of condition 13 related to the safer, more practical truck route that circles the building instead of U-turning onto South MacArthur. Again, we can continue to work with the applicant for solutions to the truck routing if circling the building becomes a concern with potentially noise next to the residential component. They could circle in front of the building or do other options. But that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is in the audience to present and also answer questions. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Steer? Councilmember Nevels.
Welcome back, Kroger. Happy to have you guys here. I just wanted to say that as one of the council members who did not vote for this last time, I was actually incredibly surprised that you guys followed through and came back with the back through the zoning process. I mean, you had your approval, and I think I'd made some comments about there was talk in the community about Kroger not being a good neighbor, and I hope this is a goodwill gesture that our citizens can see that I think that you guys are trying to do the right thing. I think you listened to a lot of concerns that citizens had. You listened to the concerns that the council had, and took steps to try to mitigate as much of that as possible. I will say I am pleased to see the modified truck route. My big concern, as many of you know, I may have thrown out the motion about the delivery date or the delivery time window, and my main concern was the truck traffic on MacArthur Boulevard. And I think that this new route coming on and exiting of Sandy Lake does a good job of addressing that. So I'm happy to support the removal of that. I just want just the public to be aware that I think that you guys are taking steps to be a good neighbor, and we appreciate that. And I definitely think that I can support these changes where I couldn't before. So thank you guys for doing the work.
Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Steer. I just had a couple questions for you, sir. I've got a few for the folks from Kroger as well. So when we were going to put the gas pumps on the northeast corner roughly of the lot, what was initially approved by council, yeah, if you can bring that up. Okay, so there are two pole lights that would have been removed as part of that, as much as I could tell from looking at the renderings, and they're at 40 feet, and I don't think that's actually code compliant. I think 30 feet would be the limit for a pole light. So now that if this was to be approved on the south east corner, I'd like to add a condition that those two pole lights at the 40-foot height be made code compliant down to a 30-foot height. So that's one issue that I have. And then on the monument sign, just with the whole issue of light pollution being what it is there some reason that we're not asking for more downlighting on this type of monument sign instead of throwing up the light when, you know, obviously the trend is to try to minimize uplighting as much as possible?
Right. That wasn't even considered in the review of the case. But certainly, you know, if we wanted to ask the applicant to
I
do some
would like to
downlighting
explore the possibility of that. I mean, some things are workable, some are not. I don't want to be completely unreasonable, just maybe partially unreasonable, but not completely unreasonable. But that is a concern I have as well. And I think the rest of my questions I'll reserve for the applicant.
Any other questions for Councilmember Matthew?
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Steer, thank you for the presentation. Question for you, the condition that P&Z approved, the fuel truck is coming through entrance and exit through Sandy Lake, right?
Okay, so the one that P&Z approved was the U-turn onto MacArthur, but after that meeting, we had a further analysis by city staff, and we saw that turning movement onto South MacArthur wasn't practical. And so they have come back with this route where it doesn't turn on to MacArthur there.
They means?
The applicant.
Applicant, okay. And that's what you are asking us to approve?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Either this route or another route that maybe goes in front of the building rather than in back. We're open to other alternatives.
Okay, but we don't have an option, but this is the option we have today.
You can leave it open-ended to where they could work with us to provide other alternatives rather than the U-turn onto MacArthur.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Steer, for the presentation. I just have a question about the entrance from the Sandy Lake. If I remember correctly, going into that entrance and trying to make a sharp right turn, I thought that was pretty close as to making the turn without hitting the, I guess, little bit of a sidewalk or that little corner.
All right.
Is that something that they're able to do without even making any modification to that?
So right here, I think they were showing this as the turning radius. They put a turning template on it, and they could make that turn.
They could?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. I just remember when I was going there, it was just that it was a pretty close and sharp turn, so, okay.
Well, we can let the applicant also answer that question as well.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions for Mr. Steer? Okay. It's kind of clear we'd like to hear from Kroger themselves, so name and address, please, sir.
Absolutely.
You want this one?
That's perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Or we can go back to the other big one here in a minute. Good evening, Council. Clay Christie, Claymore Engineering, 1903 Central Drive. We're back here before you guys again. I know we were here before you guys. You guys worked with us, and we made a commitment to go back essentially to the ownership as we presented to you guys that evening, that we did not have the approval on the hard corner. The Kroger team, particularly Jackie that has spoke up here before, that is sitting out here with us today, she went to the owner and was able to convince that owner to open up that hard corner for us to where we could put the fuel station. And so as we communicated to staff and we communicated to you guys, we're back here today to relocate that from where it is after the concerns and everything that we received. And so the site plan that's presented to you, like we said, locates it down there on the hard corner. And I know we've kind of gone through the whole site plan and what's there and everything else, so I'll kind of just start hitting on some of the high points of what we have. In regards to the lighting that Mr. Walker brought up, first off, in the regards to the sign, up light, down light, we're open to it. We just, as long as it can be lit, that's our big concern. If we have the little arms that stick up and light it, okay. That's not a big concern. In regards to the light poles that we have that are existing on the fuel center and everything else, I'll be honest, I know that we went through some lighting stuff with Matt and everything else to try to bring that all into compliance previously. I thought that we had that all into compliance. If it is not in compliance, we will bring it into compliance, and that is just fine as well. Okay? So those are two easy high points. I know you brought it up, and not unreasonable. We're willing to work with that, and that's a simple solution. In regards to the truck route, we can talk about that. So we kind of had two things. We had the one that was presented. This is great here, Matt. Thank you. This is what we presented to P&Z and the council, and here's our thought behind the reasoning for this right here, is that most of the time whenever we have truck routes and truck gets delivered there, it's either earlier in the morning or later in the evening, whenever traffic's lighter and everything else. But it could be at 7 a.m. and we heard from the neighbors, hey, we don't like the trucks in the back. That was obviously a big component of what we had. So whenever we were analyzing our truck route and what we were trying to do, we were trying to avoid sending another truck, even though it may be just one truck a day or something like that. If it was early or late in the evening, we were trying to present an option that we were avoiding going back behind the site again, to where if somebody was asleep at 7 a.m. in the morning and that fuel truck was driving by there, they didn't hear that truck going. So that's the reasoning that we have behind that. We talked with our operations, we talked with that. We agree that making a U-turn is not ideal. We always try to avoid that whenever we do our truck maneuvering. But we did run that through our operations. We did run that through our folks. And, you know, whenever we talked to them and that was evaluated, we do feel like that's an operation that they can make. That is a maneuver that they can make. That said, we did hear staff's comments whenever we talked with that and we talked to them. And they said, hey, we're a little uneasy on that. We're concerned and everything else. So we said, well, we can come up with a second option. If it does come at a busier time or the traffic's, you know, if it's a busier time in traffic, there is an alternative that we do have that is able to go around the back of the building and exit out, which is that secondary option. You know, what's critical for us is being able to get that fuel delivered. But that's the reason behind those two, and that's the reason why we presented those both of those options to you guys. We're more than open to discuss that. The key there is to make sure that we can get our fuel delivered. I know you had the concern about turning in off of Sandy Lake and making that turn. So whenever we go through and we lay these sites out, we do have a pretty advanced software that actually can model the truck turning paths of the vehicles and the way they turn, and we can actually select different vehicles to where we can select the exact vehicle essentially that is of the fuel truck that is able to be made, which is a little bit smaller than, you know, the big larger trucks that make the big deliveries, but essentially it's kind of generalized as what they call a WB50. And so the truck turning template that you see on here is actually modeling that truck turning movement that we have there. We also circulate this circulation with our operations folks, like I'd mentioned earlier, and they review it to try to make sure that they're in agreements, that some engineer like me just doesn't put something on paper and it doesn't make sense. So we have ran that through both of them, and we are able to make that turn. There is one thing I know that Mr. Steer had brought up as far as potentially having the fuel truck run in front of the facility. We would really go against that. That's against Kroger's deal, and the reason being is that if the store is open and if something is happening, we do want to try to keep those 18-wheelers away from our main path of pedestrian entrance. That's where everybody's walking in and out of the store, and so that's the only option that we have to us that is a really big negative for Kroger, is because of the way that goes. And then lastly, I know Mr. Nevels, that there was talk about the time from 3 to 4 and everything else. We've talked with our operations folks, and it's not necessarily that we're against the deliveries from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It's more of an operations thing. And I know we talked about it on the stand, and we talked to them. And from that deal, we can go put that in our system, and we have that. The challenge is that if we have a truck that's going out and say they have 2 fuel drops, and this is the second fuel drop. Well, if they go to one fuel station and they get delayed, say a FedEx truck or something is parked on top of the fuel station, they have to wait to get delivery. Communicating that to the truck driver and everything else is going to be very difficult to where they have that. And if they can't drop from 3 to 4, what are they going to do? They're going to have to go find somewhere to park if they get there between that and we have that. Well, then we have an 18-wheeler just sitting there and waiting to drop fuel. And that was the challenge that we had, and that's the reason why we come with that request to you guys, is not necessarily trying to get out of it, but just the practicality of what we had. When we went back and talked to all the operations guys, they said, yes, that's something that we can talk about and do, but it's going to be pretty difficult. And in the event that, you know, we've heard everybody's voices of Kroger making a promise and not being able to deliver it. So we're kind of here today to say, hey, we will do everything we can, but if we could alleviate that prevents us from putting our foot in our mouth and not being able to deliver, or having an 18-wheeler sitting out in the parking lot, and then we get complaints, hey, we've got a truck sitting out here blocking traffic or doing whatever that is, or blocking parking spaces. And so that was the reasoning behind that. And with that, I ran through a lot of it. If I missed one of your questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Council, Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir, for appreciate all your answers to those questions. I've just got a few more I did want to discuss with you if we could.
Sure.
With respect to the gas station itself, you're proposing a 5-inch skirt around the canopy soffit to help, shield the emanation of the light. You know, these LED lights are great. They're, you know, very efficient from a cost-effective basis, but they're incredibly bright. The problem is that the light that you're proposing to use, this Scottsdale Vertex, the SCV petroleum canopy light, it actually extends down about 2 inches from where it's mounted, so you're still only going to have about 3 inches of shield. Would it be possible to drop the soffit another 2 inches, from 5 inches to 7 inches, so that we would actually have 5 inches of protection?
So I may have to, I'm not the architect of that building, so I don't want to mislead everything. And I can probably talk with some of my folks on doing that while we're checking on that. I know some of that'll be tough, just the way that the fixtures, the way that they mounted, but I think that the way that the fixtures are mounted, and Richard, you may have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that the fixtures are actually mounted under the canopy, the way they mount in the soffit is there, but they actually mount flush with the top of the canopy, and then we have that skirt that drops below it. Richard, am I saying that correctly? So the mounting is up inside the canopy, but it is actually flush with the bottom of that. So we should still have that full skirt to be able to screen that, so the light bulbs don't hang down.
I'm sorry. So the part of the SCV light that's closest to the ground will still be flush with the soffit itself?
I believe, Richard, that is correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Sorry, it's not my expertise, so
No,
I wanted to make
it's
sure I didn't
totally
want to
fine.
mislead you.
And you've
but
got
that's
a
my
good team
understanding
with
of being
you,
there.
so
Yes, sir.
I don't mind you drawing upon your team for an answer. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I know
I understand.
you didn't know what I was going to ask you, so
Appreciate that question.
totally fair. I mean, and the problem is just that makes a difference to the people that live on the west side. And so it's very important to them that they not have that light bleed off from the gas station, now that it won't be protected by the building or shielded by the building from their homes.
Correct. And one thing that we did agree to that I think Matt, trying to add to that, we are going to put the little shields around those too as well. So that'll help drop down on those lights as well. So there's the 1-inch shields that will be on those lights.
I'm sorry, on which one, sir?
On the lights on the canopy, that there was going to be the 1-inch shields that would be on those lights. So we're also adding that to help with any light that might broadcast as well.
Okay, good. That wasn't on any of the drawings that we saw, so that
There was something that was discussed that they asked us to add to that, and so we added it.
Okay, thank you. Good job, Matt. Yeah, no, that's a welcome addition. On the 40-foot poles, I mean, you know, like you've got on the far north pole, on the 40-foot pole, you've got a small shield, but if we could bring those down to where they're code compliant at 30 feet, then I think it'll really alleviate some of the bleed of the light into the backyards of the people that live on that north side. With the lower height. So I think that's important there. I would like you to try to look at downlighting on the monument sign, and I appreciate your willingness to consider that. Okay, on the pharmacy lights, two things really. I do appreciate the effort to put shields on those 3 pharmacy lights on the west side of the building. The problem is that they're somewhat undersized for those particular lights, and they're also not attached flush with the light
We're still
on the
working
far
on
west
that.
side.
Yes, Mr. Walker, we're still working on that, and we have that part of it. And some of that we had talked about was actually, and we are working with the neighbors, and what we're working on is actually lowering those lights on the actual building mount, and something that we have planned. Come on up, Richard. He's been the one coordinating it all and doing everything, so I'll turn off.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Richard Binkley, 751 Freeport Parkway. So just, yes, to answer your question, we have ordered both types of shields for those wall packs and for the exterior lights. We have those in with the correct screws. And so to answer your question, yes, we're gonna change them out to the Cooper approved shield.
Okay.
So that'll take care of that. So that's the first step on the wall packs. If it's not enough, we'll still work for the residents to lower them, but the first step is to get them to where they're not bleeding through.
Okay.
So we believe we can take care of it with the plan we have now. And we have everything in, and we're about to move forward with installation. So.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. And I saw that on the far border of the property, you do have pole lights that are projecting east into the parking lot. And so my question was, would it be possible, even with the improved shielding on the wall packs? I guess there's 3 of them on that west wall,
So on the west wall, you're talking about,
above the pharmacy drive-through.
okay, so those are wall packs, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what was your question again?
Well, given the fact that there's pole lights on the far western perimeter of the property that are going back into the parking lot toward the pharmacy, would it be possible to turn the pharmacy wall packs off when the pharmacy's not in operation?
That's a possibility, sure. If the other ones are given enough illumination where we feel like it's safe, yes, we could do that.
Okay, and I would just ask you, please take a look at it, because you're getting double illumination right now from the wall packs and then from the pole lights that are on the west perimeter as well. And they're LED lights, they're the same standard light that you have on all the other 30-foot poles, so I would think there'd be adequate illumination from a safety perspective
Right.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the intent is to stay within the glare and illumination standards for all lighting, so.
Okay. And then I brought some pictures, but I don't think they're necessary at this point. The trees that have, I mean, y'all made an effort to try to plant the trees to fill in and I do appreciate that effort. I do think that planting them in the fall will hopefully make a difference. But we're talking about planting both on the west wall where those particular trees are dead as well as the north wall, correct?
Correct. Everywhere we're not in compliance.
Okay.
And everywhere trees are dead now, we'll replace, so we're working with Mr. Steer.
You know, if you could address all these issues, I think it would show tremendous good faith to the neighbors that live around there, tremendous good faith to this council and to the city. And, obviously, we appreciate having the grocery store there and having Kroger there. And I know there are a lot of people that are pretty crazy about the Kroger points at the fuel station. But, this kind of lighting stuff and, some of those LEDs are so bright that it does disturb the ability of, the kind of the peaceful enjoyment of someone's backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I take that very seriously.
Okay.
And I hope you do too.
Yes.
And then my final question, with the CNS acquisition, with the Kroger and Albertsons acquisition, I mean, they just announced today they're going to close 26 stores in Texas. Is it safe to say that this is not one of them, given the investment that you're making?
I can't speak to that, and I'm not sure what, we just don't know.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. That's an honest answer, and I appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Steer, can you go back to the monument sign? Are you guys offering that price for gas right now? Just curious.
You've got to have at least one question like that for me.
Yeah.
So.
No, I just want to echo Councilmember Neville, what he said, for you guys coming back with all the modification and listening to the citizens and also what we actually asked for. Appreciate your effort in doing everything that you can to make this work. I have one more question for Mr. Steer. One of the conditions that we have, number 12, if warranted, the installation of the fuel bays, the owner and the occupant shall fund the share of the cost of the install of the traffic signal. How likely is this going to happen? And have we thought about what kind of traffic condition is going to create with additional lights being so close to MacArthur Sandy Lake?
I'm going to defer to Mike Garza.
So regarding if there was a traffic signal there at Village Parkway, is that your question?
Well, how likely is this going to happen, and how much of a problem it's going to cause?
Right, as of right now, a signal is not warranted, and based on the trip generation of a fuel pump center, I don't anticipate the need for it, but we will monitor that need, and in the event, if it is warranted, there will be a study that will be completed to determine whether it's warranted or not after the fact, if we deem it necessary. And then related to the proximity to the adjacent signal there at Sandy Lake, there are coordination efforts and timing plans that we can make work, even though they're about 500 feet apart.
And is it likely that we do install traffic lights at close proximity in that scenario
Yeah.
in other locations too?
Yes, we have other locations with a similar situation. There are other locations similar to that. One being a newly Hackberry and 635 is one that's about 500 feet apart. And then there's a couple others, Northwestern and Freeport, close to 121. The other QT up there, there's going to be a signal there. So there are other areas, and signal timing will dictate.
Okay, but those are all without a school in the proximity, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And I'm guessing that we're going to try everything we can to see whether that actually is ideal at that time, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
And I do have one thing to add, and so after we went through P&Z, we talked with Matt and Mr. Garza kind of about this in depth a little bit more, just to try to talk about that and try to maybe kind of round that up a little bit to make it a little bit more concrete of understanding. And so just to let you know what we've been doing, and Mr. Garza doesn't even know this because I was going to present this also when we had this, if we needed to discuss this today, is that we've actually gone above and beyond just the trip generation of our traffic analysis. We've had our traffic engineer go through and generate estimated traffic counts for the loading of the fuel center, plus the loading of the fuel station. We've also accounted for some of the school and residential traffic for some peak hour traffics that we have right there. And we're going to continue that discussion with Mr. Garza as we've been discussing. And I was going to follow back up with just a letter of him of saying, hey, here's where this is, to keep that discussion going so that we're all on the same page. Staff's been great to work with on that, to try to come to kind of an understanding of that, because we understand the need and how that goes, and kind of get that kind of tied down a little bit more. And so just to let you know, we did take that, and we took that pretty serious to the point that we've had our traffic folks take an extra step of not just, hey, here's our trip gen that would require that further study. We are going further into that study, and we have some numbers that we'll be presenting to staff.
Well, thank you so much for that again. I appreciate you continue to, put the effort to make this work. So I thank you again.
Councilmember Nevels?
Just one point of clarification, and I'm sure you might be able to help me out a little bit. So, through P&Z, the U-turn exit was approved at P&Z.
Correct.
All right, and then after further analysis, it was suggested that the route behind the store would be a better route to do that.
Well, any alternative to the U-turn.
Yeah,
So,
correct. I just wanted to clarify something that you said, just to make sure are we asking for approval of both routes? Because I know you said something about, like, if there being lighter traffic, potentially doing the U-turn, or Matt, or Mr. Steer, is that something that you are saying that the city does not endorse that U-turn? I want to make sure I am clear.
yes, the city does not endorse the U-turn at any time.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood the because I would prefer, obviously, I know it might generate a little bit of noise, but the safety of the school kids right there next to Lakeside Elementary is important to me. So the route behind the building makes much more sense to me. So I just wanted to, I was clarifying to see if that was like maybe a busy time and slow time optional route, or if we were going to route everyone behind the building.
So I know we understand staff's point on that. Our only thought is that if, again, going to practical reasons and practical things, that if a fuel truck goes up there, again, we didn't want to present something to you guys that that isn't going to happen. To where the fact if they drop fuel at 8:30 at night and they go through and there's not much traffic there, and that truck makes the U-turn, we wanted to present that to you guys so that y'all understood what it was. That's why I was presenting that. We weren't trying to, we didn't want to do that, and then something happens and then you guys get a phone call, hey, the truck's making a U-turn here. So that's why for our presentation, we did present both options to you guys. So
okay,
that's the reasoning behind it.
But Matt, just the condition that's being presented is the route behind the building.
Correct. Or if they wanted to do in front of the building, but not the U-turn.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I definitely don't support going in front of the building because of the pedestrian potential there. So thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Hill.
I wanted to ask you about that route. you've run that through your program, the auto turn, to be able to figure out if the driver can make that turn, and you're saying it's not a problem at all?
So, I mean, it's tight, as you can see right there. It's a tight turn. That's not uncommon for our fuel trucks to have to make those tight turns. I mean, when we're moving these fuel stations and everything else, and limitations on your widths and your drives and radiuses and different things like that. But our modeling and talking with our folks right now, I mean, we're confident that they can make that. I can't tell you that there wouldn't be any time here that a truck driver doesn't make a mistake and they were to jump the curb or something of that nature. Because that does, I mean, that can happen to anything. You could have a 50-foot wide driveway there and a truck driver could still cut it short and stuff. So I'm not going to blow smoke up your skirt and say that that's not a possibility. But for our intents and purposes of everything that we do, running through our group, running through our modeling software, we're able to make that turn.
So during busy times, the obvious route would be to go around the back of the building. And those busy times are typically not early in the morning or late at night. Because I'm concerned about this, the citizens that live along there being disturbed early in the morning. And so I'm not opposed to them making those U-turns during kind of off-peak hours where the traffic is much lighter. So I really think that both routes are good. It's just got to be the appropriate time for when they do that.
Understand, and that's kind of the reasoning why we had both of them in there. Again, our ultimate concern is being able to deliver our fuel to the fuel stations. We'd had input on both sides of this and understand the pros and cons of both. And so that's why we presented both in the option. Ultimately, whenever our truck drivers are there and they're making that turn, they're going to take essentially the path of least resistance. If they can make that turn safely, then likelihood of them making that is very likely. If it's in a busier time and there's cars backed up, they're going to go right on through that intersection and they would loop around the back of the site. It would be my common sense thought on how this is all going to happen.
Council, any other questions? Thank you, Clay. Appreciate it. This is a public hearing. We did have one person signed up to speak, and that is Mr. Bobby Finken.
Me again.
Name and address, and probably who you represent would be important.
Bobby Finken, 1032 Basilwood. I'm representing myself, and I'm also on the board of the HOA, which I don't know if you all have heard this, but we are the largest HOA in the city of Coppell. So a couple things. One, I wasn't going to bring this up, but it just came up. This traffic light would be a disaster. We don't need a traffic light there. There's a school there. Can you imagine all those kids trying to get out of there with a traffic light? Plus, there's already one down the street, so hopefully that doesn't come back. As far as your question, Jim, about the 26 stores, none of them are Kroger's that are going to be closed. So that's already been defined, so that store can't be on that list. I'm only here right now to this has been going on for about a year. I started working even before Jackie was involved with Kroger. And I don't mean working as getting paid. I'm just as part of being a citizen. So this has been going on for a year, and it was approved 2 months ago. And Jim said he was against it because he said we didn't need any more retail on that side of town. Kevin was against it because of the location. So now they're moving the location, and now you're going to drive these trucks back by the neighbors. They're really going to like that after you ask them to move the gas station. But my point is I think we just need to get this approved and be done with it and quit pushing Kroger into doing other things, because all this does is just delays it. I mean, it's already September. We're not even going to have this gas station now by New Year's Day, and it's been, 16 months in the process? So I think it's time to move on. City of Coppell has 7 other gas stations on the west side of town. I have no idea if those people went through all the pushback that we've gotten here. As far as the citizens that are saying these things about Kroger, that is not true that they are not a good citizen. They do an admirable job. They provide a great service. Many of us are there, and you are right that a lot of us love our fuel points, and we want to use them. The closest Kroger gas station to here is in Carrollton or in Irving off by Ken West. So that's 15 minutes each way. So if anybody wants to talk about being green and all that, it's not real smart to be driving that far away to get gas. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any other concluding comments or questions? Mr. Steer, could we put the conditions back up on the screen? There were, as I recall, there were 13 of them. Councilmember Carroll?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to actually offer up, if when a motion comes up, or I'll make the motion, in fact, on number 11, on condition number 11, if we might just remove that restriction at this point. And my rationale would be, I don't know that the benefit from a logistics standpoint, I don't know if we really get that much benefit for that 1 hour gap that they have to operationally work around. And now with the route either behind the store and not going out onto MacArthur at all, I don't know that there's not as much benefit with that. So I am happy to make the motion, but I would like to have condition 11 struck.
If you'll put that in form of a motion, then we can certainly address it. Councilmember Hill.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Carroll on that point. I also am opposed to condition number 12. I want that stricken because I think it would just wreak havoc with that area, with people coming in and out. You know, I travel that road daily, and it would just be a nightmare. So with that, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and approve item number 10 with conditions 11 and 12 stricken.
Thank you. And seconded by Councilmember Matthew. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. I'm sorry, discussion? Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm fine with 11 and 12. I'm also fine with investing the driver of the fuel truck with some discretion as to whether he makes a U-turn or whether he goes around the building. I think there's a good point made. These guys know how to drive these trucks, and if it looks like traffic is clear at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night when he's there, I think it's better that he make the U-turn, frankly, than if he drives all the way around past all those people's homes at 9 o'clock at night. So I would certainly favor that. On condition 10, address light screening towards residential areas and landscaping deficiencies. I mean, I'd like to have the condition that the west side wall packs not be turned on when the pharmacy's not in operation. I think you can address that with shielding. I don't think you necessarily need to lower the wall packs. I appreciate the interest in looking at that if it becomes necessary, but I think anytime you lower the altitude of those lights, you're going to lower their dispersion, and I think that would likely help. I think address the light screening and all like that, and the landscaping deficiencies, the trees is fine, but I'd like to have the 2 poles lowered to where they're code compliant at 30 feet on the northeast side. And
Councilmember Walker.
Yes.
Are you going to be putting these in a motion?
Yes, but I wanted to first just articulate what they are and then just say a few points about it, if I could.
Continue on.
Okay, thank you. So, to me, I think some of these are important. So do I amend the motion? I guess I just amend the motion.
Sir.
I would amend the motion with respect to condition 10 to include a proper shielding on the west wall packs over the pharmacy, and to terminate their use at any time the pharmacy is not in operation, and to lower the 2 pole lights on the northeast side of the store to 30-foot compliant height. and to ensure that there's proper shielding around the west wall packs over the pharmacy. And I'll accept what you guys have said about the soffit lights underneath the station itself. And that would be my amended motion.
I need a second on the amended motion. So I see no second, so the amended motion fails. We're back into discussion, Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem.
Actually, since the motion failed, then it doesn't matter. I just wanted to ask, no, I just want to ask about the current lighting, right? The lighting that Councilmember Walker is talking about, if you were to take that or turn it off, is there sufficient lighting in that location for safety-wise?
Off the top of my head, I can't, I think we could work it out, but I can't tell you for sure on the lighting of that. I would assume that we probably could do something there, but I just don't know. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. And even if that doesn't, I mean, we're going to commit that we've already talked about. We have the shields in place on the pharmacy lighting, so regardless if that passes or fails, we're going to do it anyways.
All right, thank you.
So, Councilmember Hill, for your information, the amended motion didn't pass for lack of a second. The original motion is still on the table. Your motion is still on the table. Yes, sir. And there was a motion made and a second. We went into discussion, then we had an amended motion made, which failed due to lack of a second. So we're back into discussion mode for the original motion, which had a second.
Mayor, I have a question. Is there an intent so that when I write the ordinance, make sure that are you approving just one entry routing, entry and exit off Sandy Lake
No.
with no alternative for the U-turn onto MacArthur? Because you mentioned that and you made the motion, so I want to make sure I'm capturing what your intent is.
My intent was to allow both routes, but I did not state that.
That's correct.
But would I have to amend my motion?
Yes, sir, you may.
Have the second withdraw and restate your motion would be the
Okay.
easiest. So could whoever the second, have them withdraw their second.
Councilmember Matthew did.
Yeah, that was me, so I can withdraw my second.
Now, Mr. Hill can restate his motion.
Okay.
Councilmember Hill, would you like to restate your motion?
Yes. I'd like to close the public hearing and approve item 10, striking conditions 11 and 12, and adding the condition that both routes for egress by the fuel truck are acceptable, the U-turn as well as going around the back of the building.
Was there any hours of operation? I think they offered to say that in off hours with less traffic. What I had written down while you were all talking and discussing this, it said entry and exit from Sandy Lake with certain, this for fuel trucks with circulation around the perimeter of the site, or the fuel truck operator may make a route variation to exit onto MacArthur from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yes,
Would
that
that
is
would that
very
capture
succinct,
your intent? Thank
and the
you.
way I would have liked to have said it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll second that.
Thank you. I was getting around to asking for that. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve item 9, close the public hearing with the exception of 11 and 12, and the modifications to number 13 that Mr. Hager has made. Is there any further discussion? I will accept the motion, or I will, oh, I'm sorry, we're already past that. All in favor?
Carol, Neville's, Dunn, Matthew Hill, opposed? Walker, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. As everyone here said, you've been very patient in dealing with us, and we do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, item 11 is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and ask Ms. Boswell to read it into the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Item number 11 is a public hearing. Consider approval of PD 210R2-SF9, 416 K Street, a zoning change request from PD 210 SF9 to PD 210R2 SF9 to approve a short-term rental on 0.22 acres of property located at 416 K Street at the request of Lorna Bell, the property owner. So good evening. This item is regarding a short-term rental. As you may recall, on May 30th of this year, City Council approved an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Article 30, special use permits, defining and establishing special use permit requirements for lodging houses, which includes short-term rentals. So all existing and future short-term rentals will be required to have a special use permit in addition to registering with the city in order to legally operate in the city of Coppell once their current registration has expired. So we currently have about 10 STRs in the city. So this is the first one that is coming before you for the special use permit process. So the applicant, Ms. Lorna Bell, has owned the home since 2006 and has a homestead exemption. The home has been registered for short-term rentals since the beginning of 2019. This home has one bedroom for rent with a maximum of 2 guests and is proposing to continue with that same setup with the owner residing here as well. Typically, a special use permit is required for a short-term rental. Because this property is currently part of an existing planned development, an amendment to the PD is more appropriate and essentially accomplishes the same result as an SUP. Adds no extra burden or fees on Ms. Bell or this case. So essentially, it's a little bit of alphabet soup. The plan gets reviewed. We send out notices because it is a public hearing, just like we would for a PD or an SUP. So this residence is located on a cul-de-sac street. The single-family home has a 2-car garage outlined in where the 2 cars are, an additional 2 vehicle on the circular drive for guest vehicles. So the bedrooms in yellow. So guests have access to a guest bedroom and a private bathroom adjacent to the bedroom. They also have access to the patio and a garden outside. There are no signs on the building indicating that it is an STR. So the site is listed on Airbnb. Staff has communicated with code compliance and the police department, and there have been no complaints for this address related to the STR. Staff has also confirmed with the finance department that the applicant is up to date on paying their quarterly hot taxes and submitting them to the city. So part of the current process for having an STR is registering with the city, which will still be required if this case is approved. The applicant is also asking for the fees to be waived, which were part of the city council's, which is part of your city council purview. The fees for this application were $525. So SUP, regardless of any SUP that we have, is $500 plus $25 per acre. So in this case, $525. So this is a zone change request. We did send out notices, 23 within 200 feet as required by state law. An additional 140 courtesy notices were sent out within 800 feet. I did have one phone call for information. That was the yellow on your map. 2 replies in favor of the request, outlined in green, within the 200 feet, and 1 reply from 800 feet against. That's identified as the red on the map. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of this request with the following conditions. 1, to obtain an STR permit prior to the current one expiring, which I believe is at the end of February. And B, to notify staff of any change of property ownership. So that is the end of my presentation, and Ms. Lorna Bell is here as well to answer any questions.
Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Boswell? Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary, for that.
Yeah.
So are we going to be going through a PD on every one of the STR applications?
No.
So why are we doing it on this one?
Because it's already a PD, and so we're just amending that PD. The process is essentially the same. So that whole subdivision is part of a plan development. And so this particular lot will now be revised, will be like the revision 2, which will contain her, essentially her SUP requirements.
Is it your estimation that that procedure is necessary on any STR applicant that has a residence within a PD?
Yes, sir. We did
Okay.
confer with the city attorney on that.
Okay. No. Hearing it from you is enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Councilmember Hill.
If she sells this property, does the approval for the PD convey to the next owner?
So because it is a zone change request, it does stay with the property, and that is why one of the PD conditions is to notify staff of any change of property ownership, so that we do have that ability to go and repeal it.
And the same would be for an SUP as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any other question for Ms. Boswell? Councilmember Walker.
Okay, so, but a special use permit would expire.
It doesn't expire. It says.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not asking the question well. If a particular individual secures a special use permit and sells the home, does the permit not expire with the termination of the ownership?
It stays with the property.
It does. Okay. Thank you.
So seeing no further questions from Ms. Boswell, Ms. Bell, would you like to come say something to us?
Yes, sir. I'm Lorna Bell, and I live at 416 K Street. And I'm in favor of the STR designation so that I can continue to operate my Airbnb as an Airbnb host. I requested the fee of $525 be waived. I've been a resident of Coppell since 2001. We downsized to K Street in 2006 due to my husband's declining health, and Ron has died. I am retired, 81 years old, and my Airbnb income allows me independence as I rent out my guest room to 2 or fewer people intermittently. I have been rated as a superhost, which is a 5-star designation, for as long as Airbnb has been giving those out, 7 years. My neighbors consider me and my home to be an asset to the neighborhood. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Ms. Bell? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Bell, thank you for coming here and telling us about you. But is any particular reason why you're asking for a waiver of the fee?
I just think it's undue responsibility. I've already paid the fee. I just would like it reimbursed.
Okay, I was just asking because, there are a number of other that will be coming, and
Yes.
I'm just concerned about setting a precedent where people come and just ask for waiver of fees whenever there is a fee. So that's why I was asking if there's a particular reason you were asking for the waiver.
I just think it's unfair under other circumstances. Other people that are doing, the other 10 people have different circumstances as well, and some of them have like a big home that they're renting out, and they're not there, and they don't watch the neighbors, and they may have people that don't care about what they do, how many people come and go, and parties and all that sort of thing. That's not for me to judge, but I think I am in a different category.
And I do appreciate you being a super host too, because believe it or not, I actually go to many places and for conventions and so on, and I do use Airbnb and always appreciate the hosts that are there and provide good services as well. So not saying anything about that fact. Thank you for the answer as well. I just have one more question for Ms. Boswell.
You did have questions for me?
Yeah, I do. Ms. Boswell, before this change and with the application fee $525, what were they paying again? Can you remind me again for a special, for the short-term rental permit fees?
So the short-term rental registration, they will still have to do. And the short-term rental registration, I believe, is $50 and $25 if you're over 65.
$25 if you're over 65?
Yes, sir.
And is there any other fee other than that? Other than, I guess, the hot taxes that you...
Right, the hot taxes.
Okay.
So they pay hot taxes to the city and they pay hot taxes through Airbnb to the state.
Okay, and so we did provide some incentive or discount for seniors for the prior application.
Right,
fee.
so if they get the zoning, they will still have to get the registration on top of that.
Okay.
So the zoning is a one-time thing, and the registration is an annual registration.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think that's it.
Councilmember Walker.
Thank you. Ma'am, I was curious, I'm sorry, you're just now sitting down, but thank you so much.
Yes, I didn't know you had more questions. Thank you.
So how long have you operated this as a short-term rental, this room?
7 years.
7 years?
Mm-hmm.
And on average, what's your experience with respect to frequency of rentals per year?
Well, just because we've been so hot, I don't get a lot of people that want to sit in the garden, though I do get people for medical emergencies, for funerals, sometimes appointments or proximity. People with problems with their boyfriend that are looking for a secure place to stay, just variety, but it hasn't been very busy this last 6 weeks or so when we've been so hot.
So how many rentals a year are you experiencing just on average, just a rough number?
I could have had that figure if Airbnb tabulates it for me.
Yes, ma'am.
And
just a rough number. I'm just...
I would say 30, well, let's see, maybe 4 a month.
4 a month?
Oh, no, on most months, but not
Okay.
August.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I do have family members that come and personal things that I do that I block the days. So it's not a continuous thing, and it's never been a roommate situation.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And then, Mary, just a real quick question. Mary gets to educate me once again.
Yeah.
So, okay. Explain the $525 fee that we're charging that's distinct from the SUP fee.
So we just have a standard special use permit fee that we charge, typically for commercial developments. And so when we adopted the STRs under the SUP, we didn't amend that fee at all. But
Okay,
if that's something that you would like for us to look into, we can certainly do that.
okay, and that's the $500 fee?
Correct, so it's $500 plus $25 an acre. So because she's, under an acre, it's $25, so $525.
And that was part of the ordinance when it applied to lodging houses and corporate housing and that sort of thing before the STR was added to it?
So the SUP,
Yes.
that's how it is in the fee schedule.
Okay. And then the $55 that you mentioned or whatever?
That's the STR registration fee.
Okay,
So there's special use permit, which is what we're looking at tonight, and then there's a short-term rental registration fee. So two separate things.
okay.
So this is the zoning, and then the other part's just a registration.
And of the other 10 short-term rentals that we're aware of in town that are operating, their time to apply for the special use permit just hasn't arrived?
So I believe the majority of our short-term rentals expire at the end of February. And so when we passed the SUP ordinance for short-term rentals back in May, we sent all of them letters telling them of the change that's been made. So that would allow them to come forward and go through this process, because we did tell them that it would be at least, a 60, 90-day process. And so Ms. Lorna Bell is the first one to take us up on that. And we will have another one next month. And we'll be reaching out again to the other STR owners to let them know, this is a lengthy process, that if your permit registration expires, you can't just come in and renew it. You have to go through this process first in order to be whole with us before you can get your short-term rental registration renewed.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Nevels?
Ms. Bell, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you. I just want to comment, you do have a beautiful yard. You may have had a very rugged council member out there working on your yard at the last Neighbors Helping Neighbors, so I remember that yard.
Incredible.
I remember that yard quite well, and you do an amazing job keeping up your property. So with that, just kind of hearing the case and hearing, kind of hearing what you're, I wanted to throw out something. I'm glad, John, I'm glad you asked the question because, talking about, there is, you said for the STR application, it's a reduced fee for seniors, correct? I definitely think, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but I'd definitely love to urge council to maybe us pursue looking at maybe some different fee structure for our seniors. I think that they provide a unique situation in terms of our blanket, maybe like standard STR owners. So I don't know if that's an appropriate time to suggest that.
I believe Ms. Boswell actually suggested that herself a little bit earlier.
Well, I knew an idea that good couldn't come from me. So, I would definitely support that direction if we gave staff that.
Okay. I think Councilmember Carroll had something to say.
Oh, I was going to make a motion.
No, we got people wanting to talk.
We'll come back to you, Kevin, don't worry. Thank you. I was just, the STR permit fee, you said, did I hear it was $100 and then $25 for seniors?
I believe it's $50 and then
Okay, so it's half.
$25 for seniors.
It's
Yes,
half
sir.
for seniors. So that's what I was I tend to agree with Kevin. I don't think we should be arbitrary on, one case over another. We ought to put something in place. So I would say, do we consider the SUP fee being half price for senior citizens, just like what we're doing on the STR fees? That's what I'm proposing for discussion.
All right, or it could be waived as well.
It could be.
Councilmember Hill?
Ms. Perone Boswell?
So,
Quick question for you. So are the fees for the SUP and the PD process the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
And
it didn't
Ms.
matter which route she went, it was still
Correct.
going to be 525?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Haggers told me that it's not on the agenda to discuss changing the fee. So you can talk about putting that on the agenda.
I had, was it Mayor Pro Tem or Councilmember Matthew? I saw a hand go up. Was it Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Remind me how many short-term rentals currently are senior citizens?
I don't know.
You know? Okay. That's the question I had.
Councilmember Nevels.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to go ahead and propose something, throw it out there so we can get some stuff going. So I move that we close the public hearing, approve agenda item 11 with conditions, and I propose, in this case, until we develop a procedure, that we waive the PD fee of $525 until we get that. What's that? Then we
Waive the fee. Don't make a condition that what may happen in the
Oh, yeah, I want to waive the fee. I'm not making that part of the condition, I apologize. I want to waive the fee. Boom, done.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Mayor Pro Tem seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Hill.
I just want to ask about a procedural point here. Can we table this until we come up with a policy for fees for senior citizens on this?
We can.
I know there's a motion on the floor right now.
Wow. I'm going to have to defer to the attorney on that one.
What? Here's my preference, is don't waive the fee, pass the zoning, and then if you want to entertain a different fee schedule for seniors for zoning applications, then do so and make it retroactive September 1st of this year.
So we need to modify the motion. And who was the second on that one?
I can't second.
No, well, we have a second, so we need,
He just made the proposal. No, I think I did second. John. Oh, John did?
Yes.
Kevin made the motion.
yes.
I made the motion.
You're the second.
Okay, withdraw. Withdraw. I made it to you.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't got a second yet for his proposal.
Well, he hadn't made a motion yet. He hasn't made a motion.
You got a motion in a second, and you have a motion on the floor, so the motion either needs to be formally amended, or it needs a withdrawal, and a withdrawal of the motion and a restated motion.
I withdraw my second.
And now, Mr.
Thank you, and Councilmember Nevels.
I'd like to make a motion.
Can you withdraw your first one first?
Oh, I'd like to withdraw my initial motion,
And
and
then
then
make-
I'd like to make a motion.
New motion.
I'd like to I move to close the public hearing and approve agenda item 11 with conditions.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mayor Pro Tem, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Don't worry about it tonight. Go sit down.
Carol, Nevels, Junn, Matthew Hill in favor. Opposed? Walker? The motion carries.
And so what I understand is you want us to bring back an amendment to the fee schedule, which would reflect some kind of reduced fee for seniors for all zoning applications or only for PD amendments and STRs, just so we know?
Only for PD amendments and STRs.
Okay. And we're going to make that so that we know that it'll be retroactive September 1st.
Yes, sir, we understand.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. All right, item number... That's only...
12.
So, now we're going to power through this one. Item number 12 is a public hearing. I open the public hearing and ask Ms. Boswell to read it into the record.
Yes, sir. Item number 12, consider approval of PD 311-LI AstraZeneca Tank Farm being a portion of Lot 3R1, Block 8, Park West Commerce Center, a zone change request from LI to PD 311-LI to allow the construction of a 19,893 square foot accessory tank farm structure and approximate 3,000 square foot building addition to the existing office warehouse building on approximately 8 acres, being a portion of Lot 3R1, Block 8, located at 508 Wrangler Drive, at the request of ML Realty, on behalf of AstraZeneca, being represented by Alan Hager of DPR Construction. Okay. So item 12. Just seeing if you're paying attention. AstraZeneca is a pharmaceutical company located on Wrangler Drive. This particular location produces one product called Lokelma, which is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia is a condition where potassium levels in a person's blood are too high and can lead to potentially life-threatening health issues, especially those with chronic kidney disease. And it affects approximately 200 million, with an M, people worldwide. So this Coppell facility is the only place where this drug is produced worldwide. Currently, they have 6 manufacturing lines and are proposing to expand it to 8. Staff has previously approved administratively a parking expansion, minor building expansion, and utility yard. This new building addition requires a PD since they are asking for a parking variance. So to meet this drug demand, they're looking to expand the manufacturing capacity at this site. The building in beige is the existing facility. This expansion includes the construction of a building called the Tank Farm that will hold the chemicals required to make Lokelma medicine. This facility operates 24 hours a day, every day, and has 4 shifts. So the zone change request is to allow the construction of approximately 19,000 square foot accessory tank farm structure in phase 1 and an approximate 3,000 square foot building addition to the existing office warehouse building for phase 2. The second phase will happen if they need it and was included because it would take out 8 additional parking spaces. Some additional equipment will be added to the utility yard already existing on the eastern portion of the site. So the site plan shows the tank farm proposed on the rear western side of the site. This portion of the site has been used up until now as a laydown yard for other work that has happened on site. This will now be converted to the building for the tanks, referred to as the tank farm. So a PD condition is being requested for the parking. So there are 237 parking spaces currently on site, which is above what is required for what they currently have. With the new construction, 253 spaces would be required. With the new construction, 45 spaces will be removed. Then they'll be adding back 16 spaces, leaving them with 208. As mentioned earlier, if phase 2 is constructed, the 8 additional spaces would be removed, leaving them with 200 spaces in total. So we asked AstraZeneca representatives about their operational needs. And as mentioned in their letter, this is a 24-hour day operation, and their current average maximum occupancy is 100 employees per day. So they have about 100 So their shifts start from 6 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening, from 6 in the evening till 6:30 in the morning. So they have about 100 people in that day shift and about 40 to 50 people in the night shift. That's how we got to the 140. They have indicated that the 200 spaces will meet their current and future business needs based on their operating staffing plan. Staff is in support of the requested parking variance. So more trucks. Trucks will enter the site from Wrangler Drive and drive down the eastern side of the building to the rear of the site, and then make their way to the tank farm building on the western portion of the site. The building will have 2 bays to receive the trucks. So now we're going to be looking at landscaping. So again, the front half of the site will not be impacted with the new construction, so nothing is changing in terms of landscaping in the front. They will be removing some of the trees from the site to make way for the new building and parking spaces, and saving those that they can. In addition, they will be planting 32 new trees on site in the parking area around the new building and along the western perimeter. They will be required to pay approximately $32,500 in tree mitigation fees. They have provided a landscape plan for the limit of work area, and have also provided staff with a plan for the entire limits. So the new tank farm building will be made of precast concrete panels to match the existing building facade, both in pattern, paint colors, and texture. So the renderings that we're looking at right now are the top 4, and then the bottom are photographs of the existing buildings. So the western length of the interior wall of the tank farm, which will face the vacant property to the west, will be a 4-hour rated so as not to interfere with future possible construction on the adjacent lot. So these are just some additional renderings of the different sides of the building. So the tank farm building itself will have a subterranean level or pit, and then 2 levels above that, which will contain the chemical tanks, office, pump room, break room, and waste room. The new building will have a backup generator on the east side, which will be screened. Again, nothing at the front portion of the site will be changing, other than the existing building will have a backup generator. So this is a public hearing. We did send out notices within 200 feet, additional notices as a courtesy within 800 feet, and we had no responses either in favor or in opposition. So the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the request with the following conditions. 1, that there may be additional comments during detailed engineering plan review. Number 2 was to revise the landscape plan, which they did, to provide to staff. And 3, to allow for parking variance, to allow the 200 parking spaces as shown on the site plan. So that is the end of my presentation. Representatives from AstraZeneca are here as well. They do have a little presentation if you would like to see it, or otherwise they're here to answer questions.
Let's do questions for you first. Council,
Sure.
have any questions for Ms. Boswell? Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mary, for that. So given the proximity of the structure to the west property line, there's no variance required for setback?
No, they meet their requirements for the setback, and they are providing a 4-hour wall so that if there was any type of fire or anything like that, there's a 4-hour separation there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Question for you. Are there any approval needed from the fire department for this type of chemical tank located in our city?
So the fire department did review the plans as well, and so they These are chemicals that they're already using on site.
Oh, it's already there?
Yes, sir. So this is just, in order to expand their production, they need more of the chemicals, and that's why they're building the tank farm.
But they are adding additional tanks inside, correct?
Right, so this building will have tanks. Let me go back here. So if you look at this, you'll see the circular cylindrical things are the tanks.
So there is an access for the fire truck to get to in case there is a fire?
Yes, sir. The fire department has signed off on the site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Plus, they'll go through a fire department review if this gets approved as well.
Any other questions for Ms. Boswell? All right. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. So.
Alan Hager with DPR Construction, and reside in Arlington, 5607 Ferris Drive. And I've had the pleasure of working with AstraZeneca on and off over the last 7 years. And this is Jerry Doyle, who is the Director of Engineering for the site. And we just really want to thank you guys for your support for AstraZeneca over the years. And we are prepared as construction managers to break ground on this exciting portion of the addition of the project, so critical to, as she mentioned, over 200 million patients worldwide, and we're doing this on an accelerated basis. And want to thank Mary and her staff and Planning Zoning Commission for working with us in such a manner to help us on this very accelerated schedule. We have permit requests in and ready to go, so we can hopefully break ground possibly quite next month, we hope. So we appreciate your consideration. Any questions you have, please ask us. Jerry, do you want to say a couple of words?
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for your time. My name is Jerome Doyle. I work in engineering at the AstraZeneca Coppell site. Mary did a great job summarizing what we're trying to accomplish. Just want to build a little bit on what she said and reinforce a few points. So we've been manufacturing Lokelma at the site since 2019. The site team really is very passionate and takes a lot of pride in the fact that they want to be able to meet every patient's demand for Lokelma globally. To be able to do that, we need to expand the manufacturing capacity at the site, and that's why we're here before you today. To be able to expand the manufacturing capacity, we have to expand the storage capacity of our starting chemicals and add manufacturing lines. So again, this is our goal is to meet the patient's need for Lokelma, and the team's really committed to that goal and really embraces that responsibility to make sure we're meeting that demand.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councilmember Walker.
Thank you, gentlemen. While certain of the chemicals being stored are corrosives, are they, I don't think any of them are particularly flammable, are they?
No, the starting chemicals they're not hazardous, they're corrosive, but they're not flammable,
Yes,
not
sir.
flammable chemicals.
Right, so, okay, I just want to make sure I was right about that.
Yes, thank you for asking.
And then I'm just a curiosity, so is the red dotted line the line where the trucks would come in that would be loading
Yeah, that's
offloading the
showing
chemicals?
the tanker route. So currently on that property, there's two buildings on that property that ML Realty owns. There's the building that AstraZeneca leases, and then there's the neighboring facility. Those facilities have a shared truck yard, and where that truck routes through is that shared truck yard. And then we
Okay.
go to the north side of the facility where the new tank farm building is to do the tanker unloads.
So how are the trucks going to turn around?
So we actually
back into
partnered,
the-
we partnered with engineering firms to model the tanker maneuvering and the auto turn to make sure that the trucks could go into that unloading area. And that's why we had to position that building a little bit further south on the property to give them enough clearance.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nevels.
Gentlemen, thank you all for coming up and speaking with us today. And just to clarify for everyone, the chemicals that are being proposed to be stored on site, they are currently stored in the main building, if you will. So it's not like anything new is going to be introduced. It's just an expansion of the current process that is already in place, just to clarify.
Correct. That's accurate. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Matthew.
Yeah, just to clarify that, you are creating or building additional tank, correct?
We're adding vessels, storage vessels, to store the starting chemicals, and those storage vessels are going to be in the tank farm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We had nobody signed up to speak at the public hearing, so it's back to the council. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will accept a motion. Councilmember Nevels.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to close the public hearing and approve agenda item 12 with the conditions that were listed.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Walker, Carroll, Nevels, Junn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 13 is a public hearing, so I open the public hearing and ask Ms. Boswell to read that into the record.
So item number 13 is a public hearing. Consider approval of PD 309-SF12 and C, Forest Creek, lots 1 and 2, Block A, a zone change request from commercial to PD 309-SF12 and C to allow development of a residence and a professional office building on 2 lots totaling 2.05 acres of property located on the west side of Denton Tap, approximately 450 feet north of West Bethel Road, at the request of Jose Fernando Teruya, FTA Design Studio, Inc. So this piece of property is located on South Denton Tap Road, outlined in red. Let's see here. Here we go. It's vacant, 2 acres in size. However, it's very oddly shaped, has a limited amount of land for development. Since a good portion of it backs up to the 100-year floodplain and drops about 20 feet from Denton Tap to the creek at the rear of the site. So staff has been working with the owner to come up with a plan to allow for his proposal, which entails him building a residence as well as an office for his architecture business next door. So in his plan, the residence would be constructed first. With this proposal, the southern portion of the lot would be rezoned to allow for a residence identified in the yellow, and the base zoning would be SF12, which matches the surrounding residences and also conforms to the future land use map. The northern portion of the property would remain commercial, so the pink, and would be for his office building. So one of the challenges of this site was the driveway locations. Staff has been working with the applicant to adjust the driveway for the commercial lot to better align with the median opening already in place. So this would entail adding a left turn lane and making some median modifications that the applicant would be responsible for. So further analysis would be done at the time of engineering review. So as you can see, the median modifications would help to align with the driveway on the commercial property. So we're going to take each lot separately and take a look at them. So this is lot 1, which is the residential lot. It's the southernmost lot on the property and would be for a single residence. So this lot is somewhat triangular with a long frontage along South Denton Tap. So it's about 440 feet in length, and it narrows towards the end, so it's kind of triangular. The base zoning for this lot is proposed to be SF12. They are asking for several variances, which include a variance to the front yard setback from 30 feet to 25 feet, and for a lot depth of 57 feet on the north side. So as I mentioned, the lot is kind of triangular, but take in mind, it's also 440 feet long. So there's at least a 10% side yard setback, so it's at least 44 feet setback from either direction. And the lot becomes longer as you move towards the center. So as mentioned earlier, the lot's irregular configuration, the 100-year floodplain limits, and limits the development of the lot. So the lot limits are in red, and the blue represents the floodplain. So anything shown in the blue area, circled in red there, has support structures outside of the floodplain and is elevated. So although it'll be cantilevered over, but not actually like on the ground in the floodplain. Staff is in favor of the reduced front yard setback and the lot depth. The residence, as shown, will be 5,118 square feet, provides a tremendous side yard and rear yard setback. The two-story building will be on a pier and beam, will have a two-car garage, a circular driveway off Denton Tap, and guest parking. There will be no alley access. They are proposing a permeable driveway with a portion of the site, and concrete pavement for the circular drive portion. So the permeable portion will help with if it's rain, so it doesn't just drain into the creek at the back. So staff has no objection to this, since they are providing concrete for the circular drive section in case emergency vehicles need to access the site. There is proposed to be an 8-foot wall along the front of the property where the garage and entry court are, with a sliding gate for access to this area from the driveway. And now we're going to move to Lot 2, which is the northern lot and is proposed to remain commercial. The applicant is proposing to construct their office here. The property to the north of this is also commercial. This lot is proposed to have a 2,990 square foot office with basically parking spaces below on the lower level, and the office is elevated above. The site will be accessed from 2 driveways off Denton Tap, which will be concrete and contain a fire lane. There is a screening wall requirement between residential and commercial zoning. In this instance, the applicant is proposing to utilize a living screen in between his office and the residence. The applicant is also proposing to use the existing trees as a living screen for the other residential lots to the west of this property. So staff is also in favor of this request, since we do not want a wall in the middle of the creek in the 100-year floodplain. And since there is approximately 100 foot from building to building with dense trees in between. I'm now going to ask Mr. Garza to come up and talk about drainage, erosion, and the floodplain.
So during the P&Z process, we heard some concerns about drainage, erosion, and the floodplain, and so I wanted to address some of those concerns and just what we examined during our review of this site plan. So related to drainage, this site was always intended to be developed as a site from our drainage master plan. It was always intended that there was going to be some sort of development on this site, and so when development occurs in Coppell, the developments are designed for fully developed flows of stormwater runoff. And so any development upstream and downstream of this site were developed for fully developed flows. So downstream designed for the impact that in the intent that this was going to be developed fully commercial or residential, that the downstream subdivisions or developments that occurred took that into account. And so the drainage is not a concern from our standpoint. It meets the master plan that was originally designed to accommodate any runoff from this development. The site has a relatively small impervious area. About 20% or so of the site is impervious, and so they are doing things to accommodate runoff to help absorb and percolate into the ground and not discharge as much as a completely fully commercial site would do with concrete paving throughout. And as they come through the process with detailed engineering plan reviews, we will review their drainage design and to meet our ordinances as well. Related to the erosion, we do have an erosion hazard setback, which requires them to stay away 30 feet from the top of the bank. In this case, they aren't able to, so part of that ordinance allows stabilization efforts related to, they would have to get a geotechnical report that recommends stabilization efforts for erosion and protection of their property. And so that's one of the requirements that they will be conforming with, and we will review their geotech's recommendation on how they're going to stabilize the bank adjacent to their property. And they also are proposing retaining walls to protect pave areas and their building as well. And so once they submit those plans, we will review those plans as well in conformance with our ordinances. As it relates to the floodplain, as Mary mentioned, a lot of the site is in the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, and they are proposing to cantilever most of their, or all of their facilities that are shown to be in the floodplain. So they're going to have the structures, the piers, outside of the floodplain, and then cantilever over several feet, probably I think upwards of 4.5 to 5 feet above what that floodplain elevation is. And so we have no concerns of any adverse impacts related to floodplain. Most developments that do, or all developments that occur in Coppell that want to impact or want to build inside the floodplain, they're required per our ordinance to provide a flood study that shows that there are no adverse impacts negatively to upstream or downstream. Being that they are developing outside of the floodplain, that's not required in this case, but they are following our ordinances. And so they are meeting our drainage, erosion, and floodplain ordinances, so we don't have any concerns at this time. When they submit their detailed engineering plan reviews, we will review those plans for any additional concerns. Thank you.
So in terms of landscaping plans are only required for the commercial lot, but they will be providing landscaping for both lots. They're proposing to move trees to be able to construct both buildings, associated parking, etc. They're proposing to save trees, as many trees as they can. According to their tree mitigation plans, they are preserving about 72% on Lot 2. Staff will need to verify the final tree mitigation fees, but they are approximately $18,680 currently. So landscaping is proposed along Denton Tap. So what you're looking at here is the commercial lot. They'll have a combination of trees, ground cover grouped at either end with small shrubs in between the driveway entrances. They're proposing to save as many trees as possible on site, and they are situated around the site, including the parking area as well as the residence. A large percentage of the site will be landscaped or in a natural state, and more than 30%, more than the 30% required for lots under 2 acres. So a condition was added by the Planning and Zoning Commission to create a conservation easement for the area to preserve the trees that Mr. Taruya would be preserving. Staff will work with Mr. Taruya and the city attorney to satisfy this requirement, and we'll be putting a note on the plat to that effect. So this is just a kind of the color palette or plant palette that they're looking to use on the site. So both buildings will have a modern look to them. So with materials for the residents, for both buildings actually being cream-colored limestone, an Austin butterstick block, and charcoal-colored terracotta rain screen. Roof will be a standing seam metal. The office building will coordinate with the same cream-colored limestone, Austin butterstick block, and charcoal-colored terracotta rain screen, as well as the standing seam metal roof. So the office building, you can see the front facing Denton Tap is on the top, whereas the rear elevations are on the bottom. So there aren't any windows at the rear of the office building. So there's windows on the front of the office building, but not the rear of the office building. So that would give privacy to the residences that are behind that. And opposite, the residents will have, doesn't look that they have any windows at the front, but they'll have windows at the back in order to enjoy the trees and the nature and the wildlife back there. The office building will be required to be fire sprinklered. There is no signage proposed at this time for the building. We're just going to go through a few slides, just kind of illustrating the residents. Again, the windows in the back for the residents. Then you've got the different north and south elevations or the sides. And then again, this is the office building where the windows on the front, no windows in the back, so privacy for the neighbors. And as I mentioned earlier, there's about 100 feet between this building and the closest residential building. And as you can see, there'll be parking underneath the building. And again, the sides of the building, the office building. And this is just part of their material board for both buildings. So again, this is a public hearing. We did send out notices within 200 feet, as well as additional courtesy notices within 800 feet. So with this one, originally we had 3 responses sent in, opposed, and then 1 additional at the meeting. So if you look on the left-hand side, that's the 200-foot. And then we had 1 at the 800-foot who was in favor of the request. So on the top left, I just want to kind of point out, in the yellow represents where the house is proposed to be, versus the blue to the north is where the office is proposed to be. I did provide, Ashley, I think she put on your chairs, some additional letters and emails that were received. So we got about another 4 emails of people with greater than the 800 feet, but also in favor of this request. So a variety of answers in terms of the people that were opposed stemmed more for the concern of the drainage, the floodplain issues. And then you do have, I guess, some letters in favor, including one from the arborist, some of the other neighbors, and other people who know the Terurias. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the request, subject to the following conditions. 1, that there may be additional comments during detailed engineering plan review. 2, that the tree mitigation fees shall be paid at the time of tree removal permit. 3, that the plat cannot be filed prior to zoning being approved. 4, that park fees are required for the residential lot. And then 5A, to allow for no alley for the residential portion. B, to allow a front yard of 25 feet in lieu of the 30 feet for Lot 1, Block A. C, to waive the screening wall requirement between Lots 1 and 2. D, to allow the existing trees to act as a living screen between Lot 2 and the adjacent residential lots. E, to allow a screening wall in the front yard as shown on the site plan. F, to allow for a minimum lot depth of 57.93 feet on the north side of Lot 1. G, to allow for a privacy and noise barrier wall within the sewer easement via license agreement. H, to allow for residential driveway access on South Denton Tap Road. I, that the applicant is responsible for any median modification costs for the installing the left turn lane. J, that the office building will be required to be sprinklered. And then K, which was added at P and Z, and was probably not in your staff report, so I apologize for that, to provide a tree conservation easement on the residential lot to conserve the trees that fall outside the developable area, providing for exceptions for diseased trees, fallen trees. So that is the end of my presentation. The applicant is here as well, and I believe he has a little presentation to give you. Do you have any questions?
Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Boswell? Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a number of letters from the residents.
Yes, sir.
Some of them are approving the project, some of them are denying, requesting to deny it.
Yes.
So I'm going to read one of the email that we have here, and maybe you or Mr. Garza can explain. It says, impact to the creek hydraulics we share as the neighbors. Can you explain to us what are the impact?
So anytime a development occurs in Coppell, the design of the development is to accommodate for fully developed flows, meaning if the land around it was completely vacant and there was going to be a development occurring upstream or downstream, they would design it as that vacant land was completely fully developed, whatever the future land use, the land use map shows, whether it's commercial, residential, light industrial, whatever that may be. And so the developments occurred upstream and downstream, the neighborhoods upstream, commercial and residential downstream. They all designed their developments with that in mind, that this property was going to be developed, fully developed flows as a commercial property. And so any drainage, any hydrology, any runoff from this site has already been accounted for in the developments, both upstream and downstream. Does that help?
It helps, but do you recommend having this project going forward?
Yes, I do.
Okay. One more question, Mayor. On the K, the conditions that we have, that's the one you added at the end?
Correct.
So we'll be keeping all the trees, the fully mature trees behind the commercial property?
So this is really more for the residential portion.
Okay.
So with the commercial portion, there's already regulations in place so that if they wanted to take down a tree, there's already mitigation fees or process that they have to go through. Typically, when a residence is constructed and someone moves in, they could take down, a tree, any kind of trees that they wanted to. So the concern that we had from some of the residents was, well, how do we know that he's not going to just take down all the trees? So we discussed it with him, and so in his developable area, which is very limited, he's obviously going to have to take down trees because he's building the house and the driveway, et cetera. But outside of his developable area, he's not planning on taking down any trees. So if you actually look at like all this area in the blue outside of the pad, he's not looking to take down any trees. So he's taking down, I think, so there's 112 trees on site. I have the number, so let me find it. So there's 112 trees that were surveyed on site. They're removing 28. 10 of those that are sick or dead, identified on the plans. So 3 of them are on Lot 2, and 25 of them are on Lot 1, which leaves them with about 75 still on Lot 1, and another 37 on Lot 2.
Okay. So just to be clear, the condition K will keep all those trees in place?
Right, unless they're, we're going to have some exceptions, like if they're dead or dying, diseased, that he has, or they're fallen, he has the ability to remove those.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have Councilmember Hill first and then Councilmember Walker. Mark?
Yes, I want to ask Mr. Garza a question. So you said upstream and downstream, the flow developed was taken into account for commercial development. Now, that lot going to residential, does that put a more load on?
Residential is typically a lesser of an impact.
So less of an
Yes.
impact? Okay, so, all right. That's the one question I had. And then I saw that item 5J, where it was required to be sprinkled, was that added by P&Z or was that
By the fire marshal.
by the fire marshal?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm just puzzled. I'm looking at 2,900 square feet with the occupancy B. I can't figure out how he's getting sprinkled, but I'll ask that to the architect when he comes up.
Okay.
Councilmember Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Mary, can you just give me a little context for the park fees that are mentioned in one of the conditions?
Sure. So with any residential dwelling that's built, there's a park fee that's assessed. So any house that's built, we assess a park fee. So that goes towards a park fund to provide parks.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Mayor, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify, you did say that the applicant is not planning to remove the tree, but does that mean he can if he wants to?
Not with K.
That's the purpose of the conservation easement. Because normally a homeowner has the right to take down any tree they want on their property.
Okay.
So this will be a residential lot, they'll have the right to remove trees without seeking a permit. By placing the conservation easement on there, it gives up that right.
Okay. So he won't be, right, so,
Correct.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. That's the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Garza or Ms. Boswell? Does the applicant have anything they'd like to say?
He's got it loaded. Oh, here we go. So just,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to say some words about this project. I'm Fernando Teruya. I live in 1056 Village Parkway in Coppell. My wife and I have been residents of Coppell for the past 22 years. And I am a licensed architect in the state of Texas. I have an office in Las Colinas. I have been in the same place for the past 16 years. I went on my own 18 years ago. And our desire for this project is we purchased this property about a year and a half ago. And our desire is to build our home next to our practice. And this is a sort of live works scenario for us, and we love to do it. We love to stop commuting and live. We love to have a place that we call our own for our office. We architects, and I have a fellow architect here, Mr. Hill. We architects have a duty. We have a professional responsibility to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. We do that with I personally do that in every project I'm committed to, and especially if it's for ourselves. This is the priority for this project. Health, safety, and welfare of the community is not just for our building, but is a benefit that we'll like to bring along to all our neighborhood. For the health part, we like to protect the trees. All this idea of the conservancy, I support it. I love the idea of having a conservancy, an easement conservancy in this property, because what we are designing is a building that goes in synergy with nature. I mean, the trees and the building, the home, are one thing. They cannot be separated. The trees are on the west side of the residence, and they provide shade. During all afternoons, we have in Texas over 270 days of sunshine, and shade is a blessing for any building. Okay. Years ago, I attended a lecture given at the National Sculpture Center by the most respected landscape architect in America, and that is Mr. Peter Walker. Mr. Peter Walker has designed many incredible gardens, including the gardens at the National Sculpture Center. At that time, he was over 80 years old, and this was over 5 years ago, so he's quite senior, and he's still in practice. At that lecture, he said something very interesting. He said that in North Texas has perhaps the most transplants of trees in the whole nation. He didn't complain about that. He just said it as a fact, well, according to him. Okay? But he said, if you are an architect and you are looking for land to build your home, find one with a lot of trees. Because a lot of architects like just plain treeless land because it's easier to plan and easier to design. But no, this is a challenge. You need to find a place with lots of trees because you need to first bring energy costs of your development down. You'll enjoy the psychological effect of being surrounded by trees and many more benefits. So that's what we did. That's what I did. I looked for a piece of land with lots of trees, a lot of mature trees, and these are one of the nicest trees in the city. These are post oak trees, and right at that wall we have post oak branches. This is the symbol of Coppell, and these trees represent Coppell here. I like to protect these trees as much as I can. But I'm designing this building to be in symbiosis with the trees. It is one thing. They cannot be separated. What you see in yellow is the footprint of the building. In red is the driveway, the concrete driveway that is required for the trash truck to get in and out. So they don't need to stop on Denton Tap Road. And if we didn't have that requirement, I wouldn't build a concrete driveway here. It will be all pervious, and like the driveway inside, like the driveway next to the house. So only that concrete area basically sheds rainwater towards the street, not to the creek. So even with that little concrete area that I have, that doesn't impact the volume of water that is going to fall on the creek. So I'm shedding all that water to the street, and then you can see there is an inlet there along Denton Tap Road on the curb. This is the side without the house, and this is the grading plan. The entire house is built on pier and beams, and you see a long beam at grade, the pool on the left side, and most of the side is left undisturbed. So the house is lifted. It's unlike any other residence built in this city. There's no residence similar to this one. And you can see the little driveway with the slope the arrows showing the slope towards the street. For the commercial side, well, the requirement is to have a fire lane and parking spaces. So essentially, what you see here is the fire lane is a concrete driveway, and the parking spaces are on pier and beams, and they are each space is on three precast concrete planks, and with open joints, so rainwater seeps through these planks and keep watering the roots of the trees. Safety is a benefit that we'll bring to this site. How so? This is the property from the creek. Actually, half of the creek on the right side is Grapevine Creek, and on the left this is a creek with no name. But half of the creek, half of Grapevine Creek is my property, and half of the creek on the left side is also my property. So we're looking towards the bridge that goes over Grapevine Creek, and that's Denton Tap Road. You can see a metal guardrail on the left side that is actually between the sidewalk and the street. And you can see the access to the creek is open. And many people treat this site as a park, and it's not a park; it's private property. Okay. Now, if you walk on the creek, and I just did it last Saturday, and took some pictures of what goes on under the bridge, you will see this. You wouldn't think this is Coppell, but it is, and there is no other place in the city that looks like this. I love art, but this is not art. This is vandalism of public property. And by building this residence and closing off the access to the creek on my side, I would somehow prevent access from my side to this place underneath the bridge. Okay. Now, there are other ways to get to this place. People can walk along the creek. People can walk for several hundred feet to get access to get to this point, but at least from my property, they won't be able to do so. This is the house, the residence, and you can see on the left side diagonally, this is Grapevine Creek running from west to east, northeast on the right side. And then there is the other creek on the right side, which has no name. So what I intend to build is a wall that you can see next to the round driveway, and that basically protects my my backyard from noise. The noise is very intense in this setting. I measure over 80 decibels during normal time, during the early afternoon, and probably during rush hour is even higher. But I think the wall will protect the backyard, will seclude it, will protect it from the noise, as well as the backyard of the homeowners across Grapevine Creek, the same homeowners that opposed to this development. And I'm going to try to close off the access from between the south end point of the house to the bridge. You can see the long line, white line, that is the guardrail of the bridge. It's a concrete guardrail. And there is sorry, I have a pointer here, sorry. Okay, this box here is a concrete box. It's a siphon of the sewer system. And it's my property, this box sits inside my property, but this area here is open and is public property. This is private property. I will close this with a fence. There are many trees here and it's very hard to get through. So I think that with landscape I can prevent people from freely accessing the creek. I've been to the site at least once per month in the past 18 months. And once I encountered a group of bicycles, basically parked in the property. I couldn't spot the persons who left the bicycles, but I guess they might have been under the bridge, or maybe playing in the creek or perhaps in somebody's property. So who knows? But it is a place that is treated as a park, but it's not a park. This is the elevation of the house. What I'm providing is a structure, the house, the residence, and a wall that has a total of about 250 feet long. And this is a view of the property towards the west. Both are almost taken from the same point. The one above is from February last year, and the one below from late summer, last year. You can see the density of the trees. You can see that even in February, in the middle of winter, you cannot see through the foliage because the creek is deep and the canopy of the trees, what you are seeing here is the canopy of the trees. You are not seeing tree trunks. And in the summer, in the middle of the summer, the foliage is very dense and there's a lot of shade here and it's impossible to see through. Even if you go close to the edge of the creek, you don't see any residents. Trees are beautiful. These are the post oaks, very dramatic. And I like to be living here looking at these trees all the time. This is an aerial view of the house. You can see the walls surrounding this inner court, the circular driveway, and the house is very long, and the bridge, you can see the sidewalk, how it bends, and then there is the guardrail of the bridge here on the left side. So this is the area that I like to close off, so nobody can access this part of the creek. And for the commercial part, the building is just adjacent to Dr. Bailey's office, and is about the same size in square feet. We have a driveway and parking underneath the building. Okay, let me go back. If we stand somewhere here on this right side and start driving south, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see we're adding trees. Basically, this is part of the mitigation plan for removing some of the trees in the office on the commercial side. You can see the driveway, and you can see the cars parked under the building. Once we pass the office building, we continue going south. Oh, this is an existing cottonwood tree. I'll come back to that later. These are new trees. These are Elderica pines and crepe myrtles. And now we got to the access point of the house. It's a circular driveway. There's a gate. There's an inner core for more cars to park for visitors. And then there is the two-car garage underneath this volume here. All these trees that you see here are existing. We've modeled with the great help of our arborists, we've identified the best trees, and we have a plan to take care for them. So the entrance of the house is around here. It's a gate. You don't see, it's a very atypical home, and it's right next to these trees. These trees are on three wheels, and you can see them adjacent to this wall, but this wall, the foundation of the wall is not resting on the roots of the trees. The foundation, the wall is resting on a beam, and the beam on piers. And so these are the three wheels for the trees. We're building around the trees. And once we go through the gate, we have this kind of mysterious entrance. It's a boardwalk. And once you come to the end of this boardwalk, which seemingly leads to nowhere, you turn around and you will see this. This is the home. it's not the home, is the setting of the home. And this is what I like to highlight, because the home is built giving tribute to nature. I love to have the house just be on the side of the road and looking towards these magnificent trees. Now, if we go down almost towards Grapevine Creek and looking back, that's the view that we're going to have. There's a pool here, and the house is raised about 5 to 6 feet from this existing grade. But as you see, the tree roots just extend below this permeable deck. All these trees are existing. We won't touch them. The house is lifted, so we can keep the tree root system intact. And this is a final image. This is the office parking. The parking for the office is also on precast concrete planks. The existing cottonwood tree is basically surrounded with cars, and we have an opening for the tree well, and this is essentially the crawl space underneath that deck. We just let the cottonwood tree, even though it's a very common species, is not protected in Coppell up to a certain dimension. I think this one passes that dimension, so it is protected. But it is a big tree that deserves to be preserved, and we can accommodate it in the parking area. Okay. Yeah. So, well. These are the benefits that we can bring to the community, and what we bring for ourselves is basically what we are going to build for ourselves is a home for our friends and family to make memories, but also as everything needs to be a challenge. I like to make the most sustainable home in the city. I have made a list of all the sustainability attributes that the house will have. And it exceeds the 80 LEED credits required to achieve platinum certification, which is same as Lee Elementary. And I like to match that. I like this to be an example of development, of residential development in the city. And so today what we are discussing is whether we want Coppell, the vision for Coppell 2030 in 2023, or a nondescript freestanding fast food building. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Hill.
Yeah, I just had one question for the applicant. So item 5J on the conditions was that the commercial space that's 2,900 square feet be sprinkled. How does that come about?
It was a requirement of the fire department. The argument was that it's on a second floor. It's not a two-story. It is a requirement for a two-story building, but this is not really a two-story building. It's only that the office is on a second floor. We don't occupy a first floor, but I think it's about the interpretation of the ordinance, and so it's imposed onto us in that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. We do have several people that have signed up to speak this evening. As we stated earlier, we do have time limits and so forth. The first person that has signed up to speak is Cindy Bishop.
Thank you, council people. I'm Cindy Bishop, 521 Wales Court, excuse me. My husband and I live almost directly on the other side of the creek from this development. And I have to say, although I serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I am here in my individual capacity and not as that of a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we go back to that slide that has the notice radius? I had a question about that first. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. With the red. I was just looking up for my house on that, and I'm not sure that I think there's more red to the west, just for clarity. I think those red to the south, that's not Wales Court. I don't know. We have several neighbors on both sides of mine, just for clarity. I am the red that kind of juts up to the northwest. So my neighbors on both sides were also opposed to this, just for clarity. All right, as background, I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and I've worked as an environmental attorney for over 30 years. And I have lived in Coppell for 36 years. When my husband and I looked to buy this lot that's now 521 Wales Court back in 1995, I did my research. I looked at the airplane noise, the paths of the airplanes overhead, the soil stability, and zoning. So I looked at this little narrow tract here and called the city, and I said, how can someone develop on this given the city's setbacks to Denton Tap and the presence of the 100-year floodplain? And the city staff looked at that, at the parcel, and they said, I don't see how it could be developed. But here we are 28 years later with something proposed. So my husband and I have several reasons for opposing this project. The first one is that the construction of the project will increase the stormwater flow to the creek and result in erosion of both the applicant's property and my neighbor's property. As mentioned, the stormwater flows into a tributary and then into Grapevine Creek. This tributary runs between our property and the parcel in question. When it rains, stormwater runs from the parcel into the tributary. In the current undeveloped state, the trees, the brush, and the grasses break up the flow. And of course, the ground soaks up a lot of the rainwater. According to EPA, an impervious cover, like a parking lot or a driveway, increases the velocity of the stormwater runoff by 500%. So although the applicant plans some permeable areas, won't those areas become plugged over time with dirt and leaves and then become impermeable? I talked to a local stormwater consultant who agreed that these areas will become plugged if not properly maintained. The increase in stormwater flow from the project will lead to the flooding of the creek and erosion of the lots that are adjacent to the creek. And we had Mr. Garza talk earlier about hydraulic studies. But my neighbors to the north on Wales Court have already experienced erosion of their backyards due to a development to the north of their property. So how effective was that hydraulic study? So I feel like we have to look at this with a grain of salt. And let's learn from these situations, and there have been others in Coppell as well with regard to backyards being eroded away, and learn from these situations and not cause further erosion. Next, regarding the residential portion of the property, there are no single-family homes on Denton Tap.
Our time has expired.
That was 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Eric Royal.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Eric Royal. I'm at 517 Wales Court. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this time to speak. We live, my wife and I moved to Coppell in 1984, lived on Plantation Court, and moved from there in 95 to Wales Court, which is the cul-de-sac that backs up to this proposed development. It's a wonderful cul-de-sac. The developer that did all this land originally was a Mr. Thweet. He owned the land, I think since Adam was a boy. When he told me when we were accessing our property and we were building Mr. Stitch's building, my company built the orthodontic building that's just north of this, he said that was how the city required him to plot the property. He didn't really expect it to ever be developed, just thought it was going to be a green space. But what I wanted to speak today was just that if you would consider not rezoning it from commercial, we understand development. We'd like to see development of that property, but the commercial side of the development is more restrictive. It's more difficult to get things right. There's ADA issues, there's parking requirements, tree mitigation. I would like to speak today beyond what Cindy spoke about with the hydraulics and so on. If you vote to allow the rezoning to residential, I'd ask that you please consider requiring the lot to be all residential or all commercial. To allow it to be replatted and be multi-zoned, it feels like it's very dense, very urban. And the two-story building that you've seen in this development, it is right up against the back of 525 and 526 Wales Court. It's been said that it's 100 feet apart, but you're talking about a two-story building that is right on the edge of the bank of that creek, and it is going to be like a billboard to the back of those properties. And you'll be able to see it from the cul-de-sac. Even in the pictures, the renderings, the architect did a great job, and he put a lot of time into it, and it's a very beautiful design. But in the sleek design, just consider that it is going to change the dynamics of the back of that cul-de-sac substantially. So please consider not allowing everything that has been requested, mainly that both residential and commercial. I understand that it's commercial now. All along there's commercial. Dr. Stitch's building, the cleaners, the oil change, and Ace Hardware. The replat allows just allows the density to increase, and the two-story building is sandwiched in a very narrow section. And if you're able to walk it, I know you're not able to do that now, you will realize that it is very, very narrow there. And the trees and the renderings and the pictures, they're full, but they're deciduous. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but they strip down in the winter, and you can see the back of those houses just like you're seeing me today. And so that tall building, that two-story with the underground parking, that's going to be a big blur right in the back of that property. I believe that the sprinkler, just in my construction knowledge of Coppell, you're parking gasoline under those buildings. That might be one of the also requirements for the sprinklers, but I'm off task now. That was, C. I do believe that there'll be a potential change to Grapevine Creek. There'll be a confluence as it comes down and it spins there. So I would like that you ask even what Mr. Garza said, I'd still like that you consider asking for a flood study. I'd ask that you not allow all the variances that are asking for, building on top of that sewer easement, the setbacks, the multiple drive approaches. I think I counted 4. I think they still show the guardrail, but the guardrail goes from the Stitch building dumpster all the way to the bridge. It's not a big deal with the guardrail. Just in closing, acknowledging the design of this plot with 2 buildings is creative, and it shows architectural. It does a lot of architectural design. It does not seem to reasonably, it not reasonably allows the zoning to represent kind of what the neighborhood is like. And so that's the main thing. Please mitigate the density if you could when your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Fernando Terrerio. Are you? Thank you very much. Our next person signed up to speak is Ana Rodriguez.
Hello, I'm Anna Rodriguez, 204 Olympia Lane. I am speaking in support of the project. I am a friend of the Tarullas. I've known them for over 20 years. And just want to also send in an email, so I don't try not to be repetitive, but just want to talk about they have been longtime residents of Coppell, raised their children here. They've chosen to, instead of leave Coppell, their children are now gone and living in other cities. They've chosen to stay here and build their residence and reinvest in our community by bringing their small business as well. Which, again, unlike some residents that their kids, go through the school system and then they leave, this couple is willing to stay here and give back to the community. So that, as well as I live right down the creek from this property, and I walk and run by this green space all of the time. My biggest concern has always been that there's going to be another retail shopping center there, or some kind of a fast food that's not going to be as aesthetically pleasing as what we've seen here today. So I just would encourage the council to take that into consideration. And while I empathize with some of my neighbors that are on the other side of the creek, I'm on a creek property too as well. I know that there's quite a bit of distance to the other side of the creek. I don't see the homes or the neighbors on my other side of the creek, and I think that the visibility from to this new property is also going to be very limited. So while I empathize with them, I would argue that they're going to be looking at something that's very beautiful versus a potential. It's zoned commercial, so there's going to be something commercial that's going to go in there eventually, and it is not going to be as aesthetically pleasing as what they're proposing to do on the property. So I would just encourage the council to take that into consideration when you make your decision here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Randy Faulkner.
I'm the certified arborist.
Name and address, please, sir.
My name is Randy Faulkner. I reside in Waxahachie, Texas. Yes, I make this drive every day. So my credentials are I'm ISA certified, International Society of Arboriculture. I am also a utility specialist. I'm also tree risk assessment qualified through the ISA. In addition to that, I'm oak wilt certified as well. So I joined this project back early last year as doing the tree survey and the health assessments or the evaluations on each and every one of the trees on that property. By the way, it is much more dense today than the pictures that we've seen it. In fact, I was on the property today because I came down Denton Tap on my way here. When I met with Y'all keep calling him by his last name. I've never used it, so it's Fernando. So when I first met him on a property, I could tell that his desire and his passion for preserving the trees was a high priority. And we probably met on the site at least a half a dozen times in talking about things that we can do, what the tree could handle, in fact, I think we even moved the footprint to save some post oaks. I think it was 8 feet or so that we did that, but he has been involved, and I've got tons of emails and texts with questions and backwards and forwards and my recommendations. And you know, tree preservation or the protection of trees is always, in my experience, an afterthought. When the problems or the stresses or the degrees of decline show up, it's usually way too late. And there's a condition that happens whenever you have construction damage. And even on this property, we will have construction damage. But hypoxylin canker is a condition that is incurable. And usually I get a call 4 to 5 years after the construction has happened, and then hypoxylin is already set in. Or another condition that happens a lot with construction damage is phytophthora, which is a root rot. Now, on this particular property, we have a lot of post oaks, and I can fix the soil compaction or the root crushing roots or even severing roots. That's fairly easy to do, but with post oaks, they take so long to regenerate their root tips, that's usually when you lose them. Being tree risk assessment qualified, I have identified about 10 trees. You said 10, Mary, I don't quite have it at 10, but one of them is of public safety. The red oak, the large red oak by the street, has decay all the way through the base of the tree. And that's trees leaning over the street, and that's a no-brainer. I'm a tree hugger, but I never pick trees over people. So we need to get that one out. But in talking with Fernando, he has pledged to me, and I'm devising and already have started a plan. Again, with construction damage, I'm not usually called out until way 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and my options are limited at that point. Fernando has pledged, and I am devising the plan for it, is we're going to get out in front of the construction damage. So post-construction, we're finished, we're completed, we're going to come out and we're going to start doing deep root fertilizations, vertical aerations, vertical mulching, however you want to say it. But we're also going to employ some good, sound arboriculture pruning on the trees. That promotes a healthy tree. That promotes the tree's own self-defenses. The way the trees are now, they are a bit overgrown, and that's causing a lot of health problems. I think moving through there, in fact, I would contend that some of the removals are going to be a helpful step for all the trees. Some of the overcrowding you have, and some of the fungal things that I've seen, and some of the pests that I've seen. So it's going to be some helpful mitigation of those trees. Overall, it's so hard to get, and I work with general contractors, commercial projects all the time.
Sir, I'm so
My time's up?
sorry. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
And I think you guys have got my point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was everybody that has signed up to speak. Council, back to you. Any comments or further questions? Hearing no discussion, I will accept the motion.
Before we move to a motion, I just want to state that I think this is probably the best use for that property. As one of the ladies said, Ms. Rodriguez, I believe, that we could have something that could be much more of an eyesore constructed there. And I think Mr. Teruya has done an outstanding job citing the buildings. He's been very concerned with the conservation of trees. He could come in and clear cut, and if you wanted to, and pay a huge impact fee on tree mitigation fee, but he's not doing that. He's working with nature, and with both of these buildings, I think it's the highest and best use for that property. So I'm inclined to support this.
Would you be inclined to make a motion then?
Absolutely. I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and approve item 13 with conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Walker, Carroll, Nevels, Dunn, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us till 10:45 tonight. And we've got more to come. Item number 14 is a city manager report with project updates, future agendas, and direction from a work session. Mr. Land.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening, there was no further direction from the work session on the work plan, so you will see that on the next meeting in September. Just regarding some updates, the Duck Pond Park improvements continue, and the project is a little bit 50% over complete. The Morrow Road Boardwalk made me laugh when I read the note today, but the project is nearly complete. The final inspections are going on. While we consistently have to make the tape go up, the boardwalk is currently closed. And if you go out and walk, it's open in terms of people keep moving the barricade. So, but anyway, it's getting close to being officially open, and we'll be doing a ribbon cutting for that. The Village Parkway Pump Station generator was delivered, and they are currently going through testing. It looks like the target is sometime mid-April. I am so wrong. Mid-October for, I was thinking about Beltline, Mayor. Thinking about.
October's good.
Yeah, October's good. That's not happening. And then lastly, with Beltline, you heard the report this evening as far as the schedule that they're working on that. The big news is that this coming week, DART will be closing the MacArthur East Beltline intersection, so avoid that to the best of your ability. And next up, by the way, when they get through with that, by the way, they're saying that they're going to be through with the intersection by about the end of September, and when they finish that, they'll be moving to Fairway Drive. So it's just, there's several more intersections to take. Mayor, that's the only report I have this evening.
Thank you very much. Item number 15 is Mayor and Council reports and upcoming events. Just one item, please remember that we would love to have our citizens participate in local government and give back to our community by serving on one of our boards or commissions. We're seeking passionate individuals to be a part of our 9 boards and commissions that help guide the development, future needs, regulations, and all for the more of Coppell. Learn more and apply at coppelltx.gov/boards. Applications are available through Ashley?
Yes, sir. Through October 1st.
Through October 1st. Thank you very much. Item number 16, public service announcements concerning items of community interest with no council action or deliberation permitted. Do we have any public service announcements? Councilmember Nevels.
Just real quick, just want to remind the community about the 28th Annual Chamber of Commerce Golf Classic coming up. So it's going to be here in a few weeks, so just want to make sure that the public was aware of that.
Thank you very much. And item number 17, there was no necessary action from the executive session, so there being no further business before this council, we are adjourned at 10:45.